River police say New York provided 100 pieces of snow removal equipment to assist crews clearing side streets, and the MBTA's Fall River and New Bedford line is back to a normal schedule this morning after snow-related delays. A Malden public school teacher and coach is set to face a judge today on charges he sexually assaulted a high school student. Authorities allege Scott Marino gave alcohol to the 18-year-old student and then assaulted. He faces 2 counts of rape, 1 count of indecent assault and battery, and 1 count of furnishing alcohol to a person under 21, according to the Middlesex County DA's office. Superintendent of Schools Timothy Sipple says Marino was placed on leave and the district is cooperating fully with the investigation. Marino teaches at the Linden STEAM Academy and he coaches the girls' high school basketball team. In sports, the Bruins host the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. A bright and sunny Thursday. Temps could top 40 degrees this afternoon. Clouds tonight, lows to 10 degrees. A sunny Friday, highs to 37. Mostly clear Friday night, lows in the 20s. Sunny on Saturday, highs in the upper 40s. Right now, 37 in Boston. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Bayer. Bayer is dedicated to delivering breakthroughs that save lives and feed the world using the scientific process. Learn more at sciencedelivers.com. This is NPR.
Hey, it's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We want to remind listeners we are not going to be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. We won't be back until March 10th after studio upgrades. But on March 10th, we're going to be joined by the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, and the governor will join us at the library on March 27th. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, and we haven't heard from the Attorney General in weeks. We have no idea what's going on there, but we are trying. As you may have noticed, the rich and powerful men connected to Epstein over in England and Europe are facing, let's call it, more accountability than American men. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor lost his royal title, big deal. And then there's the former British ambassador to the United States, also lost his job. And while they're both being criminally investigated, not for anything to do with sex trafficking. In America, at least so far, the high-profile wealthy men in Epstein's orbit have faced such consequences as retirement, like Larry Summers, or for billionaire Bill Gates, a simple staff apology has sufficed, at least for now. And of course, they have to repeat the mantra, I know nothing about the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. And then, of course, as we've learned from NPR originally and now the New York Times, a woman who was 13 years old at the time of the allegation, who accused Trump of some incredibly horrible sexual abuse, the record of her interviews has disappeared from the Epstein files, including the ones made available to members of Congress. So from the Catholic sex scandal, particularly here in Boston, to Epstein's network, there's very little of anything close to accountability. And it seems to me we don't demand it very much. So our lines are open for calls or texts at 877-301-8970. Do we need to redefine what accountability actually means when it comes to sexual violence, sexual trafficking? Demand more from our so-called leaders, and are we all just a bunch of saps for allowing almost nothing to happen? The number is 877-301-8970. I also want to apologize. I am, the other day on the air, I was saying how great it was that they're exacting all this accountability in Europe as compared to the United States. And comparatively speaking, that's true. But the accountability that's being exacted there means a really rich person steps down from his or her job, and that may be embarrassing. That sure as hell is not serious accountability for what happened to these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of girls at the hands of Epstein and his collaborators.
Well, I think we have a long history of not exacting long punishments for sex crimes. I mean, we saw this in the Catholic abuse stuff where hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children, very young children sometimes, I covered a trial of Newton firefighter who was 6 when he was abused by Paul Shanley. Paul Shanley I think he did 10 years.
I counted that 5 priests went to jail this morning.
Shanley, Gagan, James Porter, reporter.
Talbot, I think.
But very few of them. And then there was an excuse because the statute of limitations had run out, but they changed the laws after that to make it so that if you were abused as a child, you could...
the statute would toll, and
Yeah, so that changed. But in general, I mean, sex crimes, the punishment is pretty depressingly slight. And also rich people who commit sex crimes. I mean, we saw the president himself held liable, not in a criminal court, but in a civil court for the sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll. There was no criminal. There was no jail time associated with that. It was a civil case, but still.
We're going to talk about statutes of limitation problems with Andrea Cabral in an hour or thereabouts, maybe a little bit less than an hour. But how about at least outing for starters? As we've learned through this Epstein thing, none of these men have been outed. Someone must have done something, obviously. And as we've said 100 times, the Epstein Transparency Whatever Act does not allow for the Justice Department to refuse to release information that may embarrass and whatever those other verbs are for those people. And if people haven't read listened to the NPR story and the New York Times story, we should be clear here, thanks to brilliant reporting in both forums, it turns out that a woman who was 13 years old at the time, and this apparently was in the presence, she says, of Epstein and Trump, and there was a demand for oral sex, and after she bit Trump's penis, he allegedly punched her in the face. Whether that's true or not, what has disappeared, or at least not been released, are the notes from 3 interviews. I think they're called 302 forms that the FBI conducted. The only 4 interviews with this young woman, the only interview that was made public is one that only mentions Jeffrey Epstein. But through brilliant reporting, again, NPR and the New York Times, there's more. So essentially, there's been no consequence for any of this. And when I mentioned this morning, you made the point, not only the Catholic Church and such little accountability, but you wrote great pieces in your Herald days in rape trials that these are considered almost like misdemeanors kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it's much better now. But I remember when I was first a reporter, someone would be convicted of rape and they get 3 months, or they get 4 months, or it was really. I mean, the women's movement was what changed everything. Thank goodness. I want to make one more point right now, though. I think it's much better to be a Republican in this particular climate than a Democrat. As we know, Comer, the head of that committee, is up there in Chappaqua interviewing Hillary Clinton today, and Hillary Clinton had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, but she once again is being asked to answer for her husband. And Bill Clinton had a lot to do with Jeffrey Epstein, but it was mostly, I think, all of it before he was convicted of any sex crimes, 2002, 2000.
But we don't know what he was doing prior to that. I mean, I think it's appropriate, but the Republicans should be called in, too. But, I mean, I think if we're going to have Hillary Clinton hauled in, then we should have Melania hauled in as well to explain what her husband was doing?
Exactly.
Well, let me ask you, Marjorie, and I don't know the answer.
Called in?
Okay, I understand. There's a party imbalance right now. I would agree with that. But let's go back a year and then beyond that. Why didn't Biden release these files?
That's a great question. I don't know. Maybe because there's a lot of Democrats in there that we don't know about. I assume that's
the answer to the question.
I assume that's the answer. And
so the point is that while I would argue that the implications, again, there's been no criminal charges, but of course some documents are not being released directed at Trump. The failure to release is a two-party crime. I don't mean literally a crime. Well, maybe it is. But both parties have not done this. When they're out of power, they scream, and when they're in power, they don't do a damn thing. 877-301-8970. How do you react to this lack of accountability now and, frankly, throughout recent history? John in Westford, you're first. Hey.
Hi. Thank you.
Sure.
I think one reason we have a lack of accountability is because we created this monster. I mean, we've had 20-plus years of files on him. What were we creating, a scrapbook? Like, it's so obvious that if you go back to Florida, for when Acosta gave him a slap on the wrist, more or less, it was Ken Starr that went down there. Ken Starr, our Ken Starr, and pushed that, he's an intelligence. They had him crossing the state lines with minors at Zorro Ranch, and people swooped in to the feds and said, nope, he's intelligence, let him go. It happened at Bear Stearns.
John,
Contra.
And by the way, Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney down there at the time and then became Secretary of Labor for Trump.
And
in
Ken
his first
Starr
term,
prosecuted Bill Clinton in the Monica Lewinsky case.
Why do you think that there has been a two-party cover-up when the Democrats were in power, now the Republicans are in power? It's because they're protecting their own, or what's your analysis?
They could be protecting the entire intelligence community. Another problem is that a lot of the victims signed non-disclosure agreements and the attorney in that was John Stanley Pottinger, who, believe it or not, I mean, everybody knows who he is.
No.
I don't know who he is.
Oh, he actually, he worked in many administrations. He started a company with Jeffrey Epstein when he was on Wall Street, right after he left Donald
Well, I don't know about
Barr's.
that, John. Let me go back to what you said. Tell me who's going to prosecute a woman for violating a non-disclosure agreement if you're right. I would say the answer is nobody. I'd be willing to do that defense. John, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. The bottom line is John reiterated, this goes back. Currently, the Republicans who were screaming bloody murder, every single one of them, from Kash Patel to J.D. Vance to Donald Trump to Steve Bannon, all of them, when they had no power, now that they have the power to do everything, obviously are engaged in a cover-up. And as a result, when I hear that, we make fun of Trump, as we should, when Trump says, the Epstein documents totally exonerated me. They didn't exonerate him at all. They haven't led to any total exoneration. He says all the time. What are you going to say? I'm sorry.
I think this also has to do with money, too, the so-called Epstein class. That these people just live in a different world. They're flying around in private jets. They're billionaires. They don't ever stand in a line at the airport or any place else, and they can hire big legal talent. I mean,
why isn't somebody out? Thomas Massey, who's with Ro Khanna. Right. Massey's the Republican from Kentucky, and Khanna's the Democrat. They're primarily responsible for the Epstein Transparency Act that Trump ultimately had to sign.
That is ignored.
Right, which in part being ignored. The Congress people have immunity when they're on the floor. When Nancy Mace accused her former boyfriend of having raped her. Mace is the congresswoman from South Carolina who's running for governor down here. Why doesn't Massey just go to the floor of the House and read the names of the alleged perpetrators whom he and Ro Khanna have discovered?
What I've read about why the women don't is because they are afraid of their lives being turned upside down, being sued for defamation, having what little they may have in their lives taken away from them because they can't afford lawyers. But I don't know the reason for Massey. Okay. That's a great question. I'm
going to mispronounce this, I'm afraid. Is it Eric in Windsor?
Derek.
I'm so sorry. Hi, Derek. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for taking my call. I'm going to be very brief. But let me tell you, your opening, I'm from Jamaica, by the way. Let me just lay it down. And I'm going to make just two quick comments. Your opening remarks, I don't think you're surprised. Because when you talk about the rich people in Britain have been held to accountability. So far, we don't know yet any proof, but at least they are held. Here in America, the law is just for small people. And if you know, I'm sure you know about Bob Marley. Yeah. In an interview, Bob Marley says, every law, they ask him about what he think about law. And he says every law is corrupt. And politicians are some of the most corrupted people, not just here in America, the whole world. And the last thing I will say, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, she's a disgrace to not only herself, but to the whole world. I watched her when she was in Congress, and the other day when she was there, they had her there, and all the victims were behind her. And one of the senators asked her, could you turn to those people who are victims and just, show some remorse? And until now, I don't know if she looked around to see that they were there. And one of these bigger news media ran a clip on her, and it showed when she was running for Attorney General in Florida. She pointed out clearly that child molesters and anyone in that category, she is going to hold them so much to the law. Now here is a toss-up. This is a toss-up, the same person. And she can't hold them to the law, to the same law that she was talking about when
Derek.
she was running in Florida. Thank you very much for
thank you very much. That was terrific. Call us again, Derek. We really appreciate it.
One of the texters it points the overall problem here. Money in politics runs everything, and money in America runs everything. The old line, money's the root of all evil here. If all these politicians weren't dependent on getting money from a big tech, big corporations, big food, big this, big that, they might do more for the American people, but that's the reason they don't.
Well, another generalization, which I know you and I agree with, another anonymous texter says, Jim and Marjorie, there's no accountability in this horrible story because women are not respected in this society. And I mean,
it wasn't that long ago. Back to the 70s, that was a story when women came in and said, accused someone of rape, and the first question was, well, what were you wearing? The assumption was that you somehow wanted this.
Do you know that until, I think, the 1970s in New York, we had the DA, former DA on our show years and years ago in commercial radio. I think her name was Linda something, who helped change the law in New York. You needed a corroborating witness to bring a charge of sexual violence against you, meaning if no one was there, as long as someone raped exactly, as long as someone raped you with nobody around, you were safe.
Well, women couldn't even get credit cards until the mid-70s. I may be off by a couple of years, but it was right around in there.
Jamie,
Jamie from
Granby.
Granby, thank you for calling.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi, thank you. I am calling because the Democrats supposedly did not bring charges. Like, everyone keeps saying that, but they did. When the DOJ was in charge under Biden, and remember, traditionally, they are kept very separate. They do not communicate at all. But we've all been corrupted by our, Trump, to say that, oh, everybody's against me, whatever. But so Biden had nothing to do with the DOJ because he's, traditional in that sense. So, but don't forget, they went after Ghislaine Maxwell and convicted her. Those files were sealed while that was happening.
Well, Jamie,
who knows what would have happened?
Jamie, Joe Biden or any Democrat could have filed the Epstein Transparency Act while Biden was president and required the Department of Justice to release any document that would not compromise the prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell. And with all due respect, I find it hard to believe that all 6 million documents would prejudice any trial against her. I agree with you. There was a separation. By the way, it's not just Biden. Essentially, throughout virtually all of American history until Donald Trump. But respectfully, I just don't agree. The Democrats, that I find it to be a flimsy excuse that they were concerned about justice for a fair trial for Maxwell. But thank you for your thoughts. By the way, you're not alone. A lot of people are texting saying the exact same thing as you. So I may be in the minority.
It's because
Thanks,
Ghislaine,
Jamie.
The case was under investigation, the Ghislaine Maxwell
That's what she just said.
Yeah.
Jamie just said that point. And a lot of texters are saying it too. I'm not buying it. There had to be some documents or something. Or maybe, how about this, Marjorie, that the Epstein Transparency Act filed by Joe Biden only goes into effect the day after the conclusion of the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. I mean, there are things that could be done. Chuck and Brighton, hi.
Hey, guys. In American history, there has never been accountability for rich and powerful white men. You look at the Civil War, Reconstruction, we did not hang Jefferson Davis. You go to the right before the Great Depression with all the fat cats on Wall Street, the Gilded Age. Nobody was held accountable for pillaging America. Let's fast forward to, the Vietnam War and lying about what was going on in the Vietnam War. You look at Nixon, who got off and then was never held accountable for Watergate. You go to the Iraq War, lying to the American people. You go to the recession. You go to just a few years ago with Donald Trump, and the insurrection on January 6th. I mean, just on, and this is nothing new.
Well, Chuck,
that's a great
history
point.
lesson.
And
Thank
Ted
you.
Kennedy always comes up in this context, and I think many people would argue that he got away with letting a woman drown in his car. I think he did get away with letting a woman drown in his car.
Joe Quebec, yeah.
So that was back in the 60s. So the caller's got a point. It's been going on for a long time.
Bill in Westwood, hello, welcome.
Hi, I got a different take on this.
Sure.
The attorney that prosecuted was a Bush appointment and a Trumpster, or at least influenced by Trump, because he buried the case, and he probably buried it so deeply that making a normal search wouldn't have found it. Whether the Obama.
You're talking about Alex Acosta? Who are you talking
Florida?
I'm talking about Epstein.
No, what lawyer you say? The lawyer who, were you talking about Acosta?
Is he the one that prosecuted in Florida?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
He was, yeah. Well,
He
prosecuted.
eventually worked for Trump, so that it's quite possible he buried it deeper than it would be found in a normal search. So under Obama and Biden, they wouldn't even know the records were there.
Well, I don't think that's fair. What was the year that, maybe not Obama, what was the year that he pled guilty to prostitution involving a minor?
2008
or 2009?
Yeah, I think it was 2008.
So there was time there, Bill. Thank you much for the call. But Bill was right. Acosta was nominated as U.S. Attorney by George W. Bush. 877-301-8970.
Several people have pointed out that some of these women that wound up at Epstein's Island were women from like Russia or some of the Stan countries that came to the United States.
Poland is doing a huge investigation at this moment because of young girls from Poland. Yeah.
Bill Gates said he was carrying on with two Russian
women. He
women.
admitted one. I think he won. Two Russian women.
Two
That's
Russian
right. You're
women.
right.
But I think they were overage. Weren't they over 20?
I believe. Well, and the Harvard guy who, not Summers, the other guy whose name.
Nowak?
No, the other. I can't think of his name at the moment. He's in the Globe Spotlight piece. Page one there. Do you have it?
I think it is Nowak. Isn't it?
Oh, Nowak. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you say.
N-O-W-A-K.
He says he doesn't remember one of the. I mean, by the way, this is Trumpian. I don't remember anything. I didn't know anything about the crimes. Just like Acosta, I called off my relationship with Epstein. I'm embarrassed that I showed poor judgment, but I had nothing to do. I knew nothing about, nor did I. So apparently, nobody had anything to do with any. These things. I mean, it's unbelievable.
They were just there. Well, they were there for the money. That's their excuse. He was giving them a lot of money. You know what's amazing about this guy? They used to say this about the priests, when you find out that they were accused of molesting 350 children.
How'd they have the time to do it?
I know. Mass. Where were they?
We're talking about Epstein.
Well, it's the same thing.
Exactly.
It's like he knew everybody, not just in the United States, but all around the world. When did this guy have time to be getting all these massages? I don't know. He was getting several a day, and he was friends with, his Rolodex was like 5,000 people or some incredible number.
By the way, we're going to continue to talk about an element of this with Chuck Todd in a minute, and then a legal angle on this with Andrea Cabral. Before we take the break, I just want to apologize. We got a lot of feedback from our abrupt ending of some segments during Pledge, and I want to apologize for us having done that and commit to you that it will not happen again in another Pledge
Yeah, it was
drive.
cutting people off mid-sentence.
I'm really sorry. It's a long story, and I won't give you the whole explanation. It just won't happen again.
Okay, coming up after this quick break, we are going to talk with political commentator Chuck Todd. He gives us his take on the State of the Union, why it matters, and he thinks we're on the edge of a reform movement. I'd love to hear about that. I'm Marjorie Egan, Houston Browder. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, renowned photographer Sally Mann on her new book. It's a laugh-out-loud, funny, irreverent, and refreshingly practical guide on the process of being an artist. Plus, Richard Smith. For more than 25 years, he spent his days in the 19th century portraying Henry David Thoreau. Now he's decided to hang up his waistcoat and straw hat. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Babson College, where students can learn to lead with impact and become a driving force for change. Babson's graduate virtual open house is on March 18th. Registration at babson.edu/gradopenhouse. And Rockland Trust Bank, committed to helping individuals and local businesses work towards their financial goals by providing financial advice and resources. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. No library till March 10th. They're doing some equipment update. The mayor joins us on the 10th there for an hour. The governor joins us on the 27th for an hour, waiting to hear from the AG. Here now via Zoom, political analyst Chuck Todd. Chuck's former moderator of NBC's Meet the Press, host of the show Sunday Night with Chuck Todd on the platform Newsphere. He's also host of the Chuck Toddcast, which you can find at thechucktoddcast.com or youtube.com/@thechucktoddcast. Hello there, Chuck.
Hey, Chuck.
How you doing, guys?
We're
Great,
good.
great. So we were just talking to our listeners about there seems to be no accountability for people that have already been outed in the Epstein files and sex crimes in general. But I'm wondering if you think people are so worried about the economy, they may be worried about immigration too. People are upset about immigration. If this kind of stuff even matters to people, this kind of getting away with abuse.
So, I'm one of those. Look, at this point, I think people have made their decision on. I've thought about this with Trump and this specific incident. So let's say they find this FBI 302, right? And they
interview forms,
right?
The 13-year-old.
Yeah.
He's already lost a civil lawsuit where. And I guess I need to be very careful how I word this.
You do.
Where he was adjudicated to have likely, perhaps, committed rape. Did I pass the legal muster?
No, you actually didn't. It was sexual abuse under New York law. Under Massachusetts law, it would be rape, and that's why George Stephanopoulos got in trouble.
That's what it was. Under certain, it was, and I think that there was certain people might call it rape. I think it was also another form of language or something like that. The point is, what new information is going to change people's views on him? Right?
Yeah.
And I say this in that they've somehow, but where I think all this has a larger impact is in the larger political messaging of the Epstein class. I think it's a class to anybody right now, anybody in America. Tell me your definition of it. The definitions would likely be all the same. Oh, rich people getting to do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what's funny about this specific incident is that I used to say I don't believe in conspiracies within government because government, we all know, Jim, you've served in it. In some ways, there's just it's very hard to execute a conspiracy without somebody knowing it and all this stuff. But when you have your former attorney as the deputy attorney general going through the information, it's understandable why people would assume, are we sure this is on the up and up? But the irony is that once again, somebody who's in power gets to dictate what information gets leaked about them and what doesn't, right? They don't have that same kind of power. I don't have that same kind of influence. And so, yes, I understand that people are frustrated that maybe a specific individual is not going to face accountability for this specific incident. But I think that this is going to metastasize into something bigger that will scoop up folks that are just part of the elite class that are building a moat around themselves. And I'm referring to the Silicon Valley guys in particular. And I think that it only adds to the belief that, boy, everybody is just trying to game the system for their own benefit. And those that were with Epstein were no different.
Talking to Chuck Todd. So, Chuck, can we? I was going to move on to the State of the Union.
Yeah,
no?
or even reform if we're running out of time.
Well, no, we're okay. Did Monday, whatever night it was, Tuesday night, that change anything?
Jesus, that's like, do you remember anything yet? Right? Like, I mean, it moved. Look, I mean, think about how it's, it's funny. It's like, how something looks clear maybe 2 days away. That wasn't a speech. That was a series of social media PR stunts.
Yeah.
Designed for consumption on social media, right? Visual moments, whether it's positive in awarding medals, right? The Lou Rawls Parade of Stars concept of a State of the Union, and or to create the visual of who stood up and who didn't and all of that stuff. But the speech itself was not coherent, right? It did not really have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It just simply was a series of social media stunts, right? That some of which were terrific. Okay, the 100-year-old Korean War veteran, right? I'm not, the reunification of the guy who saved the little girl, right?
in Texas.
Look, I mean, Donald Trump's a stopped clock, right? He's going to get a couple things right when he does these things, but he's also diluted the importance of those moments, right? Here, you think about it, and you guys remember this. Reagan started this, right?
Was it Reagan? I've forgotten.
To bring the guests, to honor the guest. It was really sort of, look, Michael Deaver, right, and Reagan, and people want to read about sort of the visualization of sort of the, they understood the power of visual, and then Bill Clinton, Bill Clinton, absolutely, that presidency was very much, when it came to dealing with the press and dealing with the public and visual and all of those things, they really emulated Reagan, right? They really took the parts of that, and he so effectively would essentially bring real people into conversation. So I unfortunately think Trump is so, like everything, one glass of wine is fine, 2 bottles is terrible, right? And he overdid it, and he made, I'm like feeling for these 2 Medal of Honor recipients who just sort of, and the folks who, and one person who some people are going to question whether the president should have given a Purple Heart for because that is usually preserved for combat. But set that aside, it diluted all of it, right? Because it was just about him and his reflected glory. But if I'm the White House and I wanted to make sure Donald Trump didn't screw everything up, then that's the speech I would have designed for him to deliver.
Talking to Chuck Todd.
So you wrote a very encouraging piece that you think we are maybe getting fed up and on the verge of the reform era. So what'd you say?
Well, I used as a hook the introduction of a bill. Maryland Congressman, freshman member of Congressman from Baltimore, introduced a bill, constitutional amendment, which is something Congress can easily do. They can introduce, because at some point, if we approve one, they have to approve it. So it can be introduced there. It can be introduced in the states. You can introduce a constitutional amendment in a variety of ways. And Don Bacon became the first Republican to endorse it. And what it is, it's a pardon nullification amendment, meaning that Congress would have the power, in the same way they have the power to override a presidential veto, right, with 2/3 vote in both houses. Rarely happens. It's not a never, but it rarely. He wanted to create an amendment that would essentially allow Congress, if they thought a pardon was egregious or something was fishy about it, that they could, with 2/3 in each house, essentially nullify the pardon. And it's the exact type of constitutional amendment, the way it's worded. I really give this congressman, I believe it's Johnny Olewinski, and if I messed up the pronunciation, that's on me, because I don't have it in front of me. But it is the type of, we're like, it's one of those moments. It's like the stock trading ban. That was a bill that was sort of sitting there for a while, and then there was a scandal, and then a bunch of people jumped on it because they realized they had it to look like, one more bad pay for play pardon, right? One more, it's sitting there. And I do think you can make the case what Biden did at the end of his term was questionable and probably shouldn't have been allowed. What Trump has been doing weekly, okay, these are weekly pay-for-play pardons that he announces, and it's become an everyday thing, so that people are numb to the scandal part of it. one of them is going to break through, and then all of a sudden we're going to have the House of Representatives have passed this constitutional amendment. And that's how, once we get one, we'll get another, And, I just believe we all want to Trumpify, whether you are like some of the things he did or not. I think there's even a movement on the right where you're just like, we can't allow this to happen again. You have some smart Trump supporters who realize, hey, all the ways that Trump hacked the system, a liberal could do the same thing, a progressive could do the same thing. Maybe that's not healthy for the republic. And so that's why I believe we're at the beginnings, and the fact that we've got bipartisan support already for this, the more we this is something that has atrophied in our system. So the more you start running, the more you want to run, the more we start thinking about constitutional amendments to update our democracy and to fortify the three branches of government, the more likely we'll keep trying.
So can I extend that for just 1 second to make sure I understand where you're going? Mm-hmm. We saw polls yesterday which were shocking to me, not to Marjorie. Graham Plattner, the oyster fisherman who got in a lot of trouble that I thought was going to cause the end of his political career, is leading the current governor in a Democratic primary for Senate by a mere 38 points and beating the incumbent Republican senator, Susan Collins, by 9 points. Is he an extension of your notion that there's something in the air in terms of reform? Or
Well, I look at that as more Democratic, where the Democratic primary electorate is. And what I think what Janet Mills doesn't represent and what Graham Plattner does, right? Graham Plattner, I mean, I do think the Democrats are going through their own version of a Trump moment, right? What Trump meant for Republicans that made them say, you know what, maybe we do need a fighter. Yeah, he's not the perfect guy, but boy, he's speaking to what I want to hear. I think, the main voter that has been frustrated by the current situation may say, okay, Janet Mills plays by the rules, but I can't have a rule follower now.
Yeah.
Give me somebody, and I look at Texas, the fact that it's Crockett, who's a fighter, ahead of Tallarico, who's wants to run a campaign of love. Like, I don't think this is the season of love. Okay, it's just, I mean, I wish it were. Like, there's my heart, it says, boy, I hope Tallarico's right, and my head says, I think Democratic voters think, hey, love is nice and all, but we want to fight. Yeah, we need we want a fighter. So I don't know if it's about that part is reform. I think the Democratic primary electorate, they want fighters right now. And I think we'll see. This all begins Tuesday. But that is I think the ultimate divide in the party right now is not left versus center. Right? It really is, right? Because arguably Mills and Plattner, Crockett and Tallarico, they agree on all the issues. They might say, okay, do you want? That's yes, there's, to some people, they may hear a distinction, but I think the distinction they hear is, do you want to fight or do you want to moderate, right? And so what I really think the divide now is are you going to go in there and are you willing? Maybe we don't want you to always use a baseball bat, but are you willing to pick up one every once in a while?
Speaking of baseball bats and sports, in your Substack, you mentioned something that Marjorie and I have talked a lot about off the air. The Trump's comments on Kash Patel's phone in the men's locker room after they won the gold medal, where he says, well, I guess I'll have to invite the women, otherwise I'll get impeached. Hillary Knight, the brilliant captain of the women's squad, responded to it yesterday. Here's what she had to say
I know there was some sort of announcement the other day. As far as my knowledge, I haven't seen anything. I thought the call in itself was distasteful and an awesome learning moment to refocus the narrative and understand, our words matter and how we speak about women matters. And we need to celebrate this team as we've earned our celebrations on the stage and representing our country in the best way. So really looking forward to just leaning into that and continuing to drive success through our group and be the inspiration that we are in our communities.
She's as good off the ice as she is on. What was your whole take on this thing, Chuck Todd?
Well, it's interesting. I let's just say the person with whom I'm related to by marriage, as my friend Tony Kornheiser likes to say, was pretty fired up about this, and is just sort of I think for, everybody has a straw. And this felt like a straw. And she was just really upset. And she really made the point really well to me. And I felt necessary to channel it because I know she wasn't alone. She was distraught that she goes, why isn't decent men of America shouting at the rooftops that this doesn't represent you? Right. And, she's used that phrase with me a lot when it comes to Trump in general. What's with this high tolerance of so-called locker room talk? Or what's with this do any of these men have daughters? Do any of these men have sisters? And there's a part of me that feels sorry for these, the problem is Trump ruins everything, right? You know what I mean? Like he inserts himself like
the Congressional Medal of
exciting.
Honor thing the other night. Remember after
Right.
he gave it out, he said, I guess I'd give myself one, but
And you're
it's
just
illegal.
like, great, you're going to ruin that too? It's just one of those things where,
Trump
he
ruins
inserts
everything.
himself. It's so funny. There are a whole bunch of people that supported him because they were, quote, tired of the politicizing of sports or tired of the politicizing of culture. All this guy does is politicize the culture, right? He constantly makes everything political. He had to turn who made this about gender? He did in the comment in that locker room.
Excellent point.
All he had to say was, man, I love it. We dominate hockey, men and women.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Can you do us a favor?
But he did it.
Can you tell us that the woman you're related to, or whatever the hell it is, by marriage?
The woman I'm related to by marriage.
By marriage, Margie and I are with her. Let her
we're
know,
with her.
please. Hey, Chuck Todd, it's great to see you as always. Be well.
All right, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking with political analyst Chuck Todd, former moderator of NBC's Meet the Press, and the show
That's
Sunday
a great line.
Night
Trump
with
ruins
Chuck.
everything.
It is. Well, he does. I'm with him on that, too. Sunday Night with Chuck Todd on the platform Newsphere. That's Noos Sphere, Newsphere. He's also host of the Chuck Toddcast, which you can find at thechucktoddcast.com or at youtube.com at the Chuck Toddcast. Okay, coming up after this quick break, former Massachusetts Public Safety Secretary Andrea Cabral is going to tell us whether anybody actually will enforce ever the Epstein Transparency Law, which was passed by Congress and signed by the president, and driver's licenses for people who are not citizens. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You listen to BPR, GBH, NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, after years guiding the safety practices at OpenAI, one of the company's key researchers quit after the announcement that its primary offering, ChatGPT, would start to roll out ads to users. She'll join us to explain why she left and what happens when those most concerned with ethics exit the AI space. That's the Curiosity Desk, today at 1 on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And McLean Middleton, a regional law firm with over 100 attorneys and locations in Woburn and Boston, serving clients for over 100 years in the areas of corporate law, tax law, litigation, and estate planning. McLean.com.
And Heights Crossing, an assisted living and memory support community offering residents experiences aimed at promoting independence, inspiring curiosity, and encouraging connection with others. More at heightscrossing.com.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browder, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Won't be at the library for the next week or so. We will return for good on March 10th after the studio upgrades are done. The mayor, Mayor Wu, joins us on that day from noon to 1. And a few weeks later, the governor will join us at the library March 27th from 11 to 12. We are waiting on the AG. Joined now on Zoom by Andrea Cabral, former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety, former Sheriff of Suffolk County, and a BPR contributor. Hello there, Andrea.
Hello there, Jim. Hello there, Marjorie.
Hey.
Hello there, Andrea Cabral. So we've been talking a lot about the Epstein files today, as you might imagine. And, there is this Epstein Transparency Law, which is passed, right, by Congress, signed by the president, which the Department of Justice is kind of basically flagrantly ignoring. So they're the Department of Justice. They can't prosecute themselves, I guess. So what about this law?
Well, we talk about this, in lots of different sort of ways, maybe not as directly on this show all the time. It's essentially, what does a 250-year-old democracy do when it finds out that it runs on the honor system? And the people who are elected to carry out the democracy have no honor whatsoever, and basically say, well, what are you going to do if I don't? And that's the position that we're in, where I've said this many times. The entire administration, all of the federal agencies within it, work for Donald Trump. The Attorney General of the United States is his former personal attorney. The DOJ is the chief federal law enforcement agency for federal crimes, through its U.S. attorney's offices in the United States of America. And the way the separation of powers works is that the Transparency Act basically requires disclosure of the files. What would ordinarily happen is that if crimes were to be, or evidence of crimes were to be found in those files, the appropriate law enforcement agency, sometimes federal, sometimes state, would initiate an investigation and perhaps criminal charges would ensue. What you've got here is the system being stymied by the very law enforcement agency, the Department of Justice, that is charged with enforcing the law if there are crimes, evidence of crimes in these files. They're not even releasing all of the files. So you can't expect them to then look for federal crimes. It's possible that there may be some state crimes that could be prosecuted at the state level, but they're making sure that they're not even complying with the disclosure law, let alone any sort of follow-up or investigation of people to be prosecuted based on what they find in those files.
So nobody has no one has the power to enforce this statute unless the Department of Justice itself decides to. It doesn't. Let me put it another way. No one was granted standing by this legislation to bring an action should there be non-compliance. Is that right?
I don't think. Well, certainly there's nothing in the language of the law itself, because apparently Congress foolishly thought, even though they had evidence to the contrary, that the DOJ would simply comply with what they would, with the law. Historically, you could sort of rely on that, but I guess you can't anymore. I would think that you might be able to, when you look at the debate around the law and the spirit of the law and what its ultimate purpose was to make these files public, you could certainly make an argument that the people, however they are represented, whether that is by a group of members of Congress or some other way, some other organization or group, have standing to bring an action, an enforcement action civilly against the DOJ. But if the DOJ simply still refused to disclose everything or said, we don't have it, or it's not there, or it's under investigation, a judge could find that there were people within the DOJ who were in contempt, but Trump would pardon them.
Okay, that's a very good point. Okay, one last legal question, then we'll move on beyond the law. Margie and I are working on each other into a frenzy this morning, discussing the lack of accountability of those who are likely perpetrators, or at least involved in the sex trafficking in some fashion. I know every state has a different deal. I don't know what the federal situation is. What's the rule in the statute of limitations? I assume what's going to happen is the Democrats win the House in November. They take office in January, and immediately they start hearings in which much more information is going to come out about this thing. Can a person be prosecuted that long after an offense is credibly charged? And a corollary question is, since in most of these cases the victims were minors, do statutes of limitations toll? Do they stay on hold for a period of time because when the crime was committed, they were underage? Am I making myself clear? Yeah, okay.
No, and really, they're really, really good questions. And as with many things in the criminal justice system, the answer is it depends.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Democrats hold hearings, if they get the majority and they hold hearings, and additional evidence comes out, that's what sort of determines whether or not a statute of limitations runs. Because the basis for a statute of limitations is what period of time is it fair over what period of time to hold a case open or to leave the possibility of prosecution open? Is it fair to the defendant if there is no end to that? And so what the law looks is, well, what information was reasonably known about the commission of this crime, the alleged commission of this crime, and at what time? And did the government respond in a timely fashion to the knowledge of that evidence and bring forth a prosecution? That's why sometimes the statute of limitations is hard and fast, because what is known is what is known and nothing more is known. And the Commonwealth should have gone forward, or the federal government should have gone forward. Other times it's like, a rolling wheel, and things are coming out in dribs and drabs. And at some point you have enough. And at that point, especially if someone has intentionally thwarted the uncovering of evidence, courts are likely to find that the statute of limitations is not told, but it's very individual, very case by case, and different crimes have different initial statutes of limitations from which a tolling period may or may not be upheld.
Okay.
Talking to Andrea Cabral.
So I want to move on to this Dahlia law, whatever it is. But before we get there, it just cracks me up. You think about how you hear people that defend the rounding up all these people that came into the country 20 years, 30 years ago. It was illegal. It was civil offense, but it was illegal. To defend, they'll say, well, you got to follow the law. That's the law. That's the law. You can't come in the country illegally. And yet, the Trump administration is breaking the laws all over the place, defying court orders, this Epstein transparency, violating the Constitution in such bigger ways. It just underscores the whole point. The little people, the little desperate people that come here from other countries because they're fleeing violence or poverty, whatever, screw them. But the people at the top of the pile just get away with murder.
Well, that was a great caller, Derek, making that point in the first hour.
Which brings us to the driver's license, the Dahlia, however you pronounce it, thing that Trump wants to do about driver's licenses for people who came to the country illegally.
Yeah, I think it's the Delilah law.
Oh, it is? Oh, I'm sorry then, too.
Delilah. I think that's Delilah.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, we always say hard cases make bad law. I object all the time when a law is named after an individual because the law applies to everyone. Mm-hmm. And has suffered greatly or been killed, brings an emotional component that doesn't really have a place in a law that applies to everyone, because then people enforce it based on emotion. It's more of his nonsense. I mean, it's just another way to target undocumented people from a man whose personal history is riddled with undocumented people, starting with his own grandfather, and including his wives, and including the chain migration that led to his most recent wife making her own parents citizens. This isn't anything. People shouldn't look at any of this as having any logic, rhyme, or reason, having anything to do with fairness or the real enforcement of the law. Our current domestic policy is based on bigotry and racism. Our foreign policy, the same, and self-enrichment and revenge. And those are basically the three things.
By the way, one of you has to explain what this is. We glossed over, assuming that people knew
this little girl
what he's proposing.
Was at the State of the Union with her father the other night, and she was hit by an 18-wheeler, and she survived.
Driven by an undocumented person. So what does Trump want to do? Could you explain that, Andrea, please?
It wants to make sure that no undocumented person can have a commercial driver's license. Now, he's aware that different states have different laws around undocumented people having regular, passenger vehicle driver's licenses. He fully understands and intends this to keep undocumented people from being able to work. If you're not able to work, it's much harder to keep pursuing your citizenship. Whether you're seeking it under asylum or some other mechanism, most of those avenues he's closed off, but there still are a few. And it is the slow strangulation of undocumented people from American life that ranges from literally kidnapping them from the street and whisking them off to another country before a court can intervene, to those that they can't get at immediately to deport, cutting off their livelihood, making them invisible. And all of those people, if they became citizens, would be future voters. You have to remember that that's always the end game, is to keep as many of these people from being able to vote once they become citizens as possible. The best way to do that, keep them out of citizenship altogether by every means necessary.
By the way, just for those who are thinking and saying, well, but doing the same old tire, worst of the worst, the people who'd be covered by this prohibition are people who have pending asylum cases, DACA recipients, the so-called dreamers, who not many people are calling the worst of the worst. You know, Andrea, the other night while I'm watching the State of the Union until whatever ungodly time, I was thinking about you. First thought I had about you is, I'm guessing she is not watching. Is that accurate?
That was a very good guess.
Okay,
Jim.
and secondly, when I was watching, the point at which I thought of you again is when Trump talked about the proof of citizenship and ID and all these sort of things for voting, claiming there is massive voter fraud and the Republicans are going to stop it, when in fact we know there's virtually no voter fraud. I also thought of you and thinking, were you watching, you would literally have to have an EMT come to your house to resuscitate you. Could you speak to a minute about the massive level of voter fraud in this country that is going unaddressed, please?
Well, in the same way that we know that 77% of the undocumented immigrants who are targeted by ICE have no criminal history whatsoever. The president's criminal history is far more serious than that of the people he's deporting.
So true.
It has been disproven time and time again. The most recent study, I think, was done, it might have been The Guardian that did it, but it's been done in individual states. It's been done by nonprofit organizations. It's been done by voter organizations. Fraud is, for a country this size that has up till now functioned under democracy, fraud in this country, voter fraud, is minimal. And many of the people who've been caught have been Republicans or MAGA sympathizers or MAGA folks committing the voter fraud. But keep in mind, they know this. He knows it. The people who enable him, they know it. It is simply a means to an end to interfere with the midterms, and as I've said millions of times on this show, to never have another free or fair election in this country, because if that happens, they can't stay in power. So don't think that this is said with any level of sincerity, that there's this level of voter fraud. He's just going to keep saying it, keep saying it, and keep saying it. He knows it's not true, but it is a means to an end so that he can abuse the law, enforce it where he has no authority, keep it held up in the courts until he can get past the elections that he would lose were they held in the normal manner.
Why do you decide, by the way, for those who haven't followed you, either your own career or through us for years, why did you decide, I know why, but why did you decide to boycott the State of the Union the other night? What was part of your thinking? What was your thinking?
For the same reason that I'm baffled that I know he holds the office of the presidency of the United States, but why would I tune into a literal flood of lies and invective targeting a teenager? That, while he is spewing this fetid nonsense from this podium, and these quislings behind him are standing up and clapping, every time he utters one of these things, his federal agencies are targeting teenagers and helping to continue to inject this fear into the population. I wouldn't spend a minute watching that. And I know some people have to. I know, that it has to be reported on, but at least today, I still have the option as an American to not listen to that nonsense.
I don't know if we said to you, Quisling is, if we had a vote for Word of the Year, I would say Quisling would be in the top 3. Would you not, Marjorie? Does that not say exactly what it is so beautifully?
Yeah, Quisling does. Did you know they also arrested, our staff is telling us, Ilhan Omar's guest, the State of the Union, the autistic woman who was pulled out of her car by ICE agents?
No, I did not know that,
I did not
actually.
know that. Thank you for telling us that. And we mentioned yesterday about Marcelo Gomes was afraid
teenager from here.
after they were talking about arresting people that were here illegally. Boy, I tell you, we're in great shape, Andrea. No question about it.
This happened on the congressional floor.
Yeah.
It did. Andrea, good to see you. Be well.
Wow.
Bye.
Okay, we've been speaking with Andrea Cabral, former Public Safety Secretary and former Sheriff of Suffolk County. We say goodbye to those of you listening on NEPM. Thank you for tuning in, but make sure to tune in at 3 o'clock for the fabulous 413 on NEPM. We're going to keep going here in Boston after this quick break. Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung is here. She's going to talk about South Station, which is now open overnight to homeless people in extreme weather. Shirley had a lot to do with that. And what it takes to get anything done around here, including housing, because the bureaucracy is just so intense. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR, GBH, and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Support independent local journalism. Gain a possible tax advantage and clear out your garage all in one when you donate your old vehicle to GBH this holiday season. Learn more at gbh.org/vehicle donation.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education, fueled by cutting-edge research and aided by the latest technology, professionals can choose from more than 90 in-person and online courses offered throughout the year. executive.mit.edu. And Mass General Brigham. In heart surgery, expertise matters. Mass General Brigham Heart and Vascular Institute performs thousands of surgeries each year and is committed to research and innovation. massgeneralbrigham.org/heart.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. I'm still getting used to this new schedule here, Jim.
Me too.
We are broadcasting from Studio 3 until March 10th. We're not going to be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. They're fixing things down there. But when we do return to the library March 10th, we're going to be joined by the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. And then on the 27th, we'll be joined also at the library by Governor Maura Healey. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Margie. We're joined now on Zoom by someone who, unlike us, actually gets action when she speaks.
She does.
That would be Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung, host of the Say More podcast. Hey there, Shirley.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie.
Hey, Shirley. Well, congratulations to you. I mean, you wrote a great column about people being shut out of South Station after, is it after 11 or after midnight? I mean,
after midnight.
After midnight, pretty late at night when the place is not exactly hopping with people, even in really cold and horrible snowy weather. But what happened?
Yeah, give us the history first for those who haven't followed the whole saga.
You guys played a role too.
We did. A very small one. We did.
So I guess back in 2023, January 2023, I guess that's like 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I wrote a piece about how South Station was locked up at midnight. You know, a lot of people, homeless people, hang out in South Station at that time, and there's a certain group of them called rough sleepers who don't feel comfortable, going to a traditional shelter. They rather sleep outside, and there are a variety of reasons for this. It's kind of well documented, and for a while there was this kind of unwritten rule that during a really cold weather, homeless people are allowed to stay overnight at South Station, but that changed, and so I started writing about that. They literally would lock up the doors. South Station is owned by the state. There's they contract out to a private security firm and management that manages the concourse, and then after I wrote a story about this, Governor Maura Healey went on the radio, went on your very show to say, listen, we're going to stop doing that. We're going to go back to this unwritten policy that was in place between Charlie Baker and the Governor Charlie Baker when he was around, and Marty Walsh, the mayor back then, almost a decade ago, that we will allow people to stay overnight in extreme weather. We're not going to kick them out. And she said that, she called it I think a matter of basic humanity, right, on your show. But then I learned that during the January 25th snowstorm, 3 years later, South Station was once again kicking people out. And so I started writing about it again. And they were letting some people go to the bus terminal, but as with the most recent snowstorm, blizzard, they did open up South Station. They did starting to allow people to stay overnight. As far as I can tell, I think they're still allowed to stay overnight because it's still quite. It is warmed up, but it's quite snowy, so there's not a lot of places to be out on the street at night. So this is a good thing.
Well,
it's a great thing.
But you end one of your most recent pieces on this, the title of which is "Time to Make Official the Old Gentleman's Agreement at South Station." You end it with, I think, a really important question. The question, Shirley writes, I have for Bostonians: how many more people need to die before we figure this out? A number of things we're going to talk to you about today. That same question, not about death, can be asked. Why isn't this getting resolved? Why aren't people in charge taking? And so what's the answer to your question? Is there going to be a permanent fix? I know Marty Walsh. Did he call you or you called him, by the way?
I called him because he was the part of the original gentleman's agreement, right? Between Baker and the mayor. And he said he called it an absolute disgrace that this policy still isn't around. And now, as I explained in that previous piece, there was unusual circumstances that led to that. This was Snowmageddon 2015. Yeah. Marty Walsh had just closed the Long Island shelter. So there's really no time to kind of provide enough beds, shelter beds or more kind of options for people. And so, but still, like the reason why it's also come to the forefront once again, not only because of this cold and snowy weather, because a homeless man was found dead, frozen, December 5th, 2025, outside of South Station. And so what would have happened if they just relaxed the rules and just opened the door, allow people to stay in there quietly? And I think the right now, as I understand it, I think the T, Phil Eng, they're looking at this. They're looking at it, and they're also getting pressure from the Boston City Council. I know Councilor Culpepper, he has introduced, there was a hearing on this, introduced, a memorandum on this to try to get something written. And I think there will be a written policy, or there's efforts to create a written policy, because people shouldn't freeze to death in Boston. I mean, more than 18 deaths, maybe climbing in New York. People have frozen, homeless people are freezing to death in New York right now.
Talking to Shirley Leung. By the way, congratulations on your relentlessness on this thing, staying on top of this. It obviously has changed the lives of a bunch of people.
And Shirley was out there at 1 o'clock in the morning too. We were not there at 1 o'clock in the morning. You were, being a real reporter. So one of your colleagues, Catherine Carlock, wrote a great piece talking about people may know in the Rotary. I think it's in the West Roxbury line by the Arboretum. Is that West Roxbury yet? I don't know. Anyway, it's right by the Arboretum, and there's a big brick building there that these nuns have lived in there for decades, and they want to get rid of it. They can't afford it anymore, and it could be it could be like 100 and some apartments in this housing crisis and condos, and it's taken forever to get the deal done. The poor nuns, they're like
they're literally called the Poor Clare Nuns of Boston.
That's right. They're poor and they're old, and the building is falling apart. And they want to get out of there.
Before you answer that question, can I rewrite your line from this other thing? The question I have for Bostonians, Shirley should have written: how many more people need to go without apartments before we figure this one out?
Yeah.
I mean, again,
they're all connected, right?
Exactly.
And so the Poor Clare Nuns of Boston, I think they're a Franciscan order. They've been in Boston since 1906, but they moved out in 2023 to Westwood because they were selling their monastery, right? They sold it to a developer that was going to convert it into 100 some condos and apartments to provide more housing, right, for the region. And the nuns would use the proceeds from the sale of that monastery so they can build, expand, they can live Westwood, they can retire them. I think a lot of the nuns are like in their 80s.
They're old,
90s,
yeah.
Right. And not only that, they need the money to expand where they are in Westwood because it's quite cramped, where they are. And that was the grand plan. And then apparently nuns from across the country are flying flying in or coming down to live with them because as these orders shrink, right? And so they're trying to consolidate them in Westwood. But all of that is on hold. I mean, the nuns wrote a crushing letter to Mayor Wu to appeal to Mayor Wu to be like, saying, quote unquote, we're in a state of crisis. Please, let's try to move this project along. Like so many other development projects, it's caught up in reviews. It's caught up from opposition from the Arboretum. They're worried about I think Magnolia tree
yeah.
And so, which is it embodies why, we don't have enough housing.
Well, who can rush it along? Can Wu or somebody else or who?
No, it's the mayor control, the mayor and city hall control, or have a big say in the pace of development projects. And as Catherine points out in her piece, the Arboretum has the ear of the mayor and the ear of the city hall. The poor nuns are just like the developers. Like we've been trying to meet with Mayor Wu. We can't even get a meeting with her.
Oh.
Well, or with her people, it sounds like, right? I mean,
right. So, but anyway, so they're very frustrated. And the nuns, they spent years on this project. I mean, before even striking a deal with the developer, they had to work with the archdiocese to say, to make sure, is this okay? Is this a good plan? So it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone at City Hall or, anyone who's been watching these poor sisters, trying to find a retirement home.
But is it in court? Is that the reason why it's taking so long?
No, I think it's just caught up in development review. I mean, which is like so many projects in Boston. I don't think they want to sue. I mean, maybe this is the precursor to a lawsuit, which is what happens when there's a stalemate, right? A stalemate, a standoff between two sides. Usually it does end up in court.
Talking to Shirley, the primary reason we're discussing another column of yours is not only because of the underlying issue, but because as part of Shirley's reporting, she went smelling around Boston to see if there was legitimacy to the complaints against. This is about Raising Cane. By the way, we don't mean the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as he's called, Raising Cane. We mean the food place.
Yeah.
Tell us the story, Shirley Leung.
Have you guys heard of Raising Cane?
Oh, sure,
before?
yeah.
Yeah, but I've never been there, though.
Well, if you have teenage boys, you would be there, or college-aged kids, right? It's all the rage. It's like, I've never heard of this place, but my sons, that's all they want to eat. They want to eat Raising Canes. It's just all they do one thing right, which is fried chicken tenders, or that's all they do, and fries. Maybe some coleslaw, but nothing else, right? Maybe you might put it on a bun. You could have a
fried chicken sandwich. Fine. Okay,
sandwich.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Anyways. So Raising Cane's, they're one of the hottest restaurant brands in America right now, and they have been in Boston. They have 11 locations in Massachusetts. In my opinion, from my point of view, it should be an honor that they're here. We have like this cool concept that wants to be in Boston, and not just anywhere, but on Boylston Street. So they're planting a flag, right?
Absolutely.
And so they've been there, I think, for 3 years. And then, but the last year, 2025, was rough. Their landlord started giving them a hard time. And they said, you know what? The place smells like chicken fingers. And they're just like...
Not just the restaurant, the whole building, right?
Well, not the whole building. Specifically, the second floor.
Okay, fine.
The chicken restaurant.
Okay, fine.
And above the chicken restaurant are luxury residences, and I think, and also now an office tenant. And so they got into a fight. They hired consultants. Raising Cane spent over $200,000 to get rid of or to minimize the chicken smells. And I think they even spent like $30,000 helping to clean the office to get rid of chicken smells. And so, and then they learned, Raising Cane's, that the landlord was like, you know what, this is not going to work out. We are ending your lease, and we're bringing in Panda Express next door instead. And so Raising Cane's ended up suing the landlords, like, you know what, this is all a ruse. You are only trying to evict us because you want to bring Panda Express in, and that's a violation of our lease. You agreed that you would not bring another a restaurant in that serves deboned chicken. And so, and the only way you can bring in Panda Express is if you get approved for us, and we do not approve. So as I wrote in my pieces, it's a classic game of chicken, right? Like who's going to blink first? The landlord's going to try to push out a high profile tenant, or, the Raising Cane's is going to raise a ruckus about this. And for me, the bottom line is like, this makes Boston look terrible. Like we can't even have this Raising Cane's, a very popular restaurant, do business on a high-profile street without, running afoul of its landlord, and it just makes us, I don't know, we're garnering national headlines, and I feel like we're like people already kind of worry it's hard to do business in Boston. Now you can't even serve fried chicken fingers.
So let me just say, wait a second.
The smell.
Oh, go ahead.
How bad does the chicken fingers smell? I don't think a chicken is being particularly
How
smelly.
bad? I would move in if I could, if I thought there was a chicken smell.
The ironic thing is I walked around Boylston Street. I didn't smell it. Now, I couldn't get inside the building. It was locked. So I couldn't go upstairs to smell the odor. So, but I know that there's another Raising Cane's in downtown Crossing. And so I started figuring out who are the office tenants around Raising Cane's in downtown Crossing. And it turns out the Downtown Business Alliance, they oversee the business district. I talked to the president, Michael Nichols, and he's like, we're actually the closest office tenant to the Raising Cane's, and we don't have any complaints. And so I walked in, I walked around the lobby, I didn't smell anything, but I did smell some chicken fingers. Do you know where I smelled them?
Where?
No, we do not.
On the sidewalk outside. Oh. They must vent the chicken smells to the outside. So how you smell like roasted nuts, right?
Yeah.
So it's like when you're in that part of downtown Crossing, you will smell a little bit, a faint smell. I mean, some people think I did have readers write, it's like, don't you smell the fried chicken on the streets of downtown Crossing? It's like, yes, I did, but I think that's okay.
Do you know what they have, by the way? I wanted to make sure you were not hurting their business by saying all they do is sell fried chicken. Essentially, all they do is sell fried chicken. They have 100-piece tailgate, they call it.
That's right.
100 pieces. It's for 27 to 29 people. It comes with 33 sauces. I'm trying to find out the price. I've been unable to. 100 piece.
You know where Raising Cane's is? It's right across. It's right by. It's like a half a block from the Boston Public Library.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Somebody for Christmas, I don't know who, maybe it was one of my kids, bought me a gift card to Raising Cane's. Yeah. And I drove down the street. I should have just walked because it's right by the library. I drove down the street, maybe in January, whatever, and it was freezing. The line outside this joint, maybe your sons were there, had to be 50 people. It was a weekday, by the way, almost all of whom were young. It was jammed.
Are they delicious?
Right. Did you make it in?
No, I gave up.
Are they really good?
Oh, you gotta go.
Are they any good?
March. They're good. They're really good. They're very tender, very good. Okay. So then it made me wonder, what about Chick-fil-A? Remember Chick-fil-A?
Yes.
Sure.
Locked down Boylston Street. I don't think I've heard complaints about Chick-fil-A. Now, there have been complaints about the delivery drivers, right, clogging up, causing congestion on Boylston Street. But I don't know. I haven't heard of chicken smells.
You know what I'm going to do? On behalf.
Did you read this?
What's that?
Zoe says she literally walked down the street and bought you a fried chicken sandwich from each of these places for a taste test.
We did that on the air?
We did it on the air. Another thing we've all forgotten about.
Okay. Well, thank you, Zoe. I was about to mention that, and I just forgot. Hey, we only have a couple of minutes left, and we're going to have this person on the show
Janice
in March.
Page.
Janice Page, who we know from the old days at the Globe there, has written a book that, by the way, is near and dear to my heart, not to mention yours. And it's called The Year of the Water Horse. First, tell us who she is, and then you had her on your podcast. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah, so Janice Page was a longtime editor at the Boston Globe, arts editor. She was at the Washington Post, LA Times, and she grew up in Braintree. I think one of 6, maybe 9 children, maybe 6. I don't know. A lot of big Catholic family, right? And she grew up there. In the 80s, she went to work when I got a job. I don't know if she was 16 or 17. She was a teenager at a Chinese restaurant in the suburbs, and through that she kind of learned Chinese. This was at a time when Boston wasn't we're not very diverse, right? This was. She had never been exposed to Chinese culture this way. So this was kind of her first kind of understanding of Chinese culture. And through working at this Chinese restaurant, she met her husband, from Taiwan, and he's a restaurateur. And so it's a love story, of her meeting her future husband in a Chinese restaurant, and then, getting to know his culture. And then eventually they end up adopting China, and kind of the journey to this baby girl. There's also a mother-in-law. It's a little more complicated to explain, but she also it's kind of this kinship she feels with her mother-in-law, and kind of her lost daughter in China as well. So lost and found, and so it's a beautiful story. You're gonna love talking to her. And Jim, I think you've done this too. She went back to the orphanage.
Yeah,
right?
We did. We'll talk about that too.
Yeah, to the orphanage with her daughter when she was, and I think one of the most poignant pieces. Do I have time to explain this?
Yeah,
you do. Poignant piece. I thought, Chen, if you haven't gotten to the point in this story where they go to China, right? Her daughter is, I think a teenager at this point. They go visit the orphanage before it closes or something like that. And they find this file. They actually find a file from her birth mother who had, when she left her, somewhere, they had written a note. And they actually found it in the file. And they looked at the note, and it was very sparse. It just had her birthday. It was just very few things. It wasn't like, take care of this child. We love her. I'm so sorry we couldn't, take care of her. It was just kind of, data. And the daughter was crushed. She was like, oh my God, they didn't love me. They just gave me up like that. But the Janice's husband looked at it. It's like, no, this has a lot of meaning. Look, they wrote it on this special red envelope paper that you get for Chinese New Year. They gave you, they listed certain data that will kind of, I don't know how, will kind of determine your fate in life. And so they left the most critical information. And so they wanted you to live a wonderful life, and they wish you all the best. And so it was just this incredible moment in the book.
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, it sounds really, really good. We're going to have her
Your
on
interview
soon.
was great too, Shirley.
Yeah, a great podcast, as
Shirley,
always.
it's wonderful to see you.
Say More Podcast.
It is
That is
indeed.
the name.
Great to see you, Shirley Leung. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. We've been speaking with Shirley Leung, Boston Globe business columnist and host of that aforementioned Say More podcast. Coming up after this quick break, the great Lisa Fischer, who's been a backup singer to the Rolling Stones, Sting, Tina Turner, and so many more. She's going to join us on the line ahead of a performance tomorrow night at the Shailene Liu Performance Center in Rockport. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Ukraine gets so good so fast at making drones. I got to talk that through with Ukraine's ambassador to the U.S.
When you want to live and you want to fight, and when you cannot allow yourself dying because you have a mission, you will invent anything.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly. What could Ukraine teach the Pentagon about drone warfare? Come join us. Listen on NPR's National Security Podcast, Sources and Methods.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Revision Energy, a renewable energy company building and servicing solar, batteries, and air source heat pumps for local homes and businesses for over 20 years. Revision Energy. Revision your power. More at revisionenergy.com. And the Massachusetts Health Connector for Business. Premium value plans can help small business owners find and offer accessible employee health benefits. Learn more at mahealthconnector.org/business.
Welcome back to BPR and 89.7 GBH. Margie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library on March 10th. The mayor will join us on the 10th. The governor will join us on the 27th. Joined now on the line by Lisa Fischer, Grammy-winning singer, spent almost 4 decades on stage with the Rolling Stones, then with Tina Turner, Luther Vandross, so many more, and in our opinion was the star of one of the great documentaries ever, the Oscar-winning 20 Feet from Stardom film about these legendary backup singers. She found success with her 1991 debut album called So Intense, which produced the Grammy Award-winning hit single, How Can I Ease the Pain? God, can she sing? She joins us ahead of a center stage performance tomorrow night, the Shallon Liu Performance Center in Rockport at the Iron Horse in Northampton on Sunday. You can find tickets at Lisa Fischer, there's a C in Fischer, lisafischermusic.com. One of the most beautiful performers and warmest people we've ever had on the show. Lisa, it's great to talk to you again.
Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. How y'all doing this morning?
We're good.
We're hanging in. We're hanging in. So tell us, Lisa, more about what's going to happen in Rockport and in Northampton. Tell us about that.
Well, we're coming. We're driving in today just to make sure we get there on time. And I'm going to be with J.C. Maillard. He's our musical director and arranger for Grand Baton. And we'll be with Richie Goods, who also, I met him when I was playing with Chris Bodie, actually.
Wow.
And then we have Terry Arpino, whose father was a drummer in France and then passed that legacy down to him. So he's here in the States, and we're all together playing, and it's just been amazing. We had a great rehearsal, and we're just ready to rock.
Hey, Lisa, we first met you before we met you, actually, when we did see 20 Feet from Stardom, which is just, it's brilliant from beginning to end, not just your piece of it. The whole thing is incredible. And obviously, you're center stage now, and I've seen you, and you're just brilliant and so electric kind of thing.
Aww.
Do you, where are you happier? Are you happier when it's the spotlight's all on you, or the spotlight is on your buddy Luther Vandross or Sting or Mick Jagger? When are you happier?
You know, it's almost like the petals on a rose. They're all tight and they're close together, and in time they start to spread. So each artist to me is like a petal. And I feel honored to be able to be part of the flower. Do you know what I mean?
But when you are the flower, how about when you are the flower? Are you?
I'm happy. I'm definitely happy. You know why? Because when I look at the music, and I've always kind of looked at it this way, the music is the gateway to people's emotions and their hearts and what they're going through. And it's supposed to heal in some way, or make people feel like they're releasing something in some way, or that they're celebrating something in some way. So to me, the music is really the joy. When I see people smiling, or they may be holding close to their loved one, or they're thinking about something, to me, that's the payoff. That's when I'm happy.
We're talking to Lisa Fischer. She's in Rockport tomorrow night. She's in Northampton on Sunday. Get tickets at lisafischermusic.com.
Well, I read a great quote from you in a New York Times piece talking about being a background performer and understanding what the band wants without explicit instructions. Do you remember what you said about a kiss? Remember what you said? If not, I got it right in front of me.
Listen to her.
I don't.
Why don't you read it?
Okay, here's what you said. I thought this was great. You have to learn the person's kiss. You can feel when it's ending. What a great line about bands and about kissing. Yeah, you got
but
it.
if there's too much spit, then it's not a good one. It's a sloppy kiss.
That's right.
Some people like sloppy kisses,
Yeah. You know, we also were lucky enough, Jim and I, a couple of summers ago, we went with some friends and we saw the Rolling Stones. This has been 2 summers ago down at Gillette Stadium. And I got to say, I was stunned because Mick Jagger, who was then like 80.
He was exactly 80.
Right.
Danced
For 2
almost
hours.
like 2 hours. So you worked with him for what, 25, 29 years? What's the deal there?
Yeah, that's what. He's amazing. I think his dad was a phys ed teacher, and so he instilled that, I think, in him at a young age that, keeping healthy is really important. Without that, you don't have anything. And so whenever he's backstage, he has his trainer with him, Tori. He's amazing. They go on walks on off days. They hike. They do all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
It's just the body is moving. The body, if you keep moving it, it'll treat you well.
Lisa Fischer,
He's
do you ever
amazing.
say anything? Do you ever say anything bad about anybody?
I was brought up in a time where it's best not to.
You're incredible.
To do that. But I think it's also healthy to acknowledge what you're feeling at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's just a way to acknowledge it and to also give people grace because we're not sure what they're all going through.
Yeah.
And then you have some people that are just pure evil and, just kind of turn you back and run the other way.
By the way, let me suggest you not run the way. I saw Lisa last time she was in town, and it was as good a night as I have had. It was just beautiful. You were beautiful. The audience was totally captivated. So I am telling you, if you're free tomorrow night, go to Rockport to the Great Shaolin Lu, or Sunday, if you're near Northampton at the Iron Horse, you can't have a better evening. Lisa, we love talking to you. Good luck and come back soon.
I love you.
We're crazy
We
about
will.
you,
Thank
too.
you so much. I love you guys. Please stay warm out there. Don't
We
slip
will.
and
We
fall.
will. You can. I want to let everybody know you can find tickets at lisafischermusic.com. That's FISCHER.
She's brilliant. Go see her.
lisafischermusic.com for Shaolin Lu Performance Center in Rockport or the Iron Horse in Northampton on Sunday. Okay. Thank you so much to Lisa Fischer, who's an unbelievable talent. Coming up after this quick break, another Am I the A-Hole segment, one we can all relate to. The messy piles of clothes we scatter around our home, spreading out your belongings for the office, etc. Messy, messy piles infringing on your housemates or office mates' happiness and you. That's next. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim, Positive Important Stuff Browder. You're listening to BPR at 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Here in New England, we love our seafood. Oysters, lobster, fish and chips. But that journey from the ocean to the plate is risky and ruthless.
The name of the game is sharpen your knife.
I'm Ian Koss, host of the Big Dig podcast, here to tell you about our new season, Catching the Codfather, a story about one man's pursuit of the American dream in a brutal industry. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Art Complex Museum in Duxbury, Massachusetts, currently displaying the Duxbury Art Association Winter Juried Show, prints by Armin Landek and works by Massachusetts artist Mo Kelman. More at artcomplex.org. And GM Roth Design Remodeling, providing custom kitchens, bathrooms, and accessory dwelling units. Their design team works to create living-in-place solutions tailored to the needs of each home and family. More information at gmroth.com.
Welcome back to BPR 88.9 GBH. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We are streaming youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be back at the library on March 10th. Today's Am I the A-Hole prompt comes to us from The Guardian's You Be the Judge column. It involves this married couple in the throes of domestic strife over the universal habit of carelessly tossing clothes on a chair or the spare bed or wherever, other than putting them away. Kevin, who is the persnickety husband, thinks his wife Mabel is living an unacceptable life. The clothes chair he is dubbed the monster never goes away. Should Mabel be forced to put her clothes away and kill her monster bedroom chair? Or do we all need to give each other a little grace for the monster piles we all leave around? It's not just at home. I may know a colleague or two who leave their things around and then get very upset when others touch their messy piles of things.
Wait a minute. You're talking about yourself.
Maybe I am. 877-301. Maybe I'm not. 8970. Who's the a-hole? The anal retentive partner who expects everything to be in its proper place at all times, or the messy, stressy type B person who's just trying to keep it all together or bringing others into their tornado in the process. And be honest, if you have a chair in your bedroom, have you ever used it for sitting, or is its sole purpose just another place for your stuff? Messes and you. Who's the a-hole? 877-301-8970. Who's the a-hole, Marjorie?
Well, I feel as though this woman really doesn't like her husband very much. You know, the poor guy, he can't even get to his clothes because
he's blocked.
There's a wardrobe. He's blocked by all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's asked her over and over again. I guess he travels for work, so he's only there a few days a week. I mean, if you're, it's kind of like and she's a therapist. And this poor guy, she says, hey, he isn't around much, so he doesn't get a say about how things are in my bedroom. And she says, plus, my teenage boys are just as messy. Their bedroom, that's right.
Yes.
And my teenage boys are just as messy too. So, you know, this is the way we live here. If he doesn't like it, too bad. A little hostile toward the husband there. So I don't know if this marriage can be saved, Jim.
Can I say I'm with the pile maker?
No
here.
doubt. No,
not for the reasons you think. I don't think you were entitled to have multiple piles that spread sort of like an amoeba throughout your whole residence. Yes, really. Or office. I think everybody, I mean this sincerely, everybody's entitled to one pile.
Okay.
I mean it. I mean, because of time or, you know, maybe it's not quite ready to go into the washer, but it's not clean enough or new enough to be folded up and put in it. Sort of like, what's that thing in your religion? What's that place you go if you're not
Confessional?
No, not heaven or hell. What's the
Limbo.
Limbo. It's sort of like a limbo kind of thing before you decide what to do.
rid of limbo.
Oh, they did?
I'm not
okay.
sure limbo's
Sorry,
around
I brought
anymore.
it up then. In any
used
case,
to be around.
So as long as it's a single pile maker, I am with the piler, and I think the pilee has to be more understanding. I know he's blocked from getting into his dresser.
He can't open the wardrobe.
Well,
he comes home from work. He wants to go to the gym. He says he can't even open the wardrobe to get his gym clothes out.
One pile.
She says she will move the chair and arrange some of the clothes very briefly. But the monster never goes away.
You know, this would have been a solution for this family. This is this woman I saw on Facebook. Her name is pronounced Yetch, even though it's spelled Giertz. She invented something called the chair. This is true. Capital letter T and C, where the arms of the chair swivel around, and you know what you use them for? A clothes rack. I mean, is that brilliant, by the way?
Yeah.
So that's a solution, but this couple didn't have them. 877-301-8970. Who's the a-hole? The woman, the wife who piles up her stuff on the monster, as the husband calls it, the chair, or is the husband who is not tolerant of the fact that she is not maybe the neatest, most efficient separator of things and filing aware of things. 877-301-8970.
Mabel is a monster. After 14 years of marriage, I finally got my husband to stop leaving his clothes on the bathroom and at least hang them on the towel rack. What is with these monsters? Just pick it up.
Wow.
How about that?
That's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Sophia, you're in Cambridge. You're first. Hi, welcome to the show.
Mabel is definitely the asshole in this case.
And a-hole. We call them a-holes.
A-holes, yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Go ahead.
Okay, a-hole, a-hole.
Yeah.
I told the screener that I was having my hair done, and I overheard the hairdresser next to me say to her client, so I heard about the divorce. What happened? And she said, well, my husband would never hang up his clothes. In fact, he would throw them on the floor right next to the hamper. And she said, and he's a lawyer, and he has all these beautiful, beautiful, really expensive suits. And I got tired of picking them up, and I told him one day, you throw a suit on the floor one more day, and I'm going to hammer it to the floor. Sure enough, he came home one night, he threw his stuff on the floor, and she got hammers and nails, and she hammered
I'm
it
in love.
the floor. And she's like, so we're in divorce court.
Is that story real or is that
I
exaggerated?
was hanging on to every word.
Oh my God, is that fabulous?
That's a great story.
Every part of that
stories.
is great. Sophia, thank you for sharing that with us. We really
At the
appreciate
hairdressers. That's really
Hammer
great
to the
stories.
floor.
Now, I must confess that I'm much better now. But as a young bride, I remember that this is when we lived in Providence. The people underneath us, they were robbed, and the cops were there, and they came up to our apartment to see if everything was okay. And they opened the door, and one of the cops says, "Yep, looks like they were ransacked here as well."
It's one of the best stories ever.
It was very embarrassing, but I'm better now, but I used to be pretty bad.
Sarah from West Rocks.
Just pile them up.
I understand that. A pile. And we want to know, is the piler the a-hole, or is it the husband who's not tolerant of this? Sarah from West Boxbury says, as someone who keeps both a wardrobe and a floordrobe, that's a pretty good line, it pains me to admit the wife is the a-hole, although we can all just admit the only real function of a chair in the bedroom is, in fact, to pile crap on. By the way, I mean, that's what I said when I was introducing this, and that person just now from West Rock. What is the point of a chair in the bedroom other than, I mean, you have a bed.
That's right.
And it's a bedroom where you go down to lie down in the bed and whatever else you're into. But the chair, no one sits in a bedroom. It's for piling crap on so that you don't have to bend all the way down to the floor, isn't it?
I think a lot of chairs end up getting used for that. By the way, we had a text earlier today that was very upset when you were in the Red Room during the storm when you were home.
Yeah.
And my daughter's dog was with me.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of squeaking sounds and squealing sounds. And they guessed that this was going on in your Red Room, Jim.
No, actually, it was the dog in the background there.
They were offended. And I'm getting emails from the Catholics now that are saying I mistook purgatory for limbo. No, limbo was where the babies supposedly went.
I meant purgatory.
No, purgatory's still there.
Oh, it is. That's
Limbo's gone. I think they got rid of that because limbo, the poor little babies don't get baptized and stuff. They die before they get baptized. They're going to go to limbo. Are you kidding me? So they decided to get rid of that. But purgatory remains. They're two different things.
Now, Lisa from Boylston indirectly criticizes my point that everybody's entitled to one pile. She says, Jim, how big do we need to accept a pile to be? A permanent pile that just keeps growing, even if it's one pile? That is actually a very good point. The single pile, there should be a height limit to the pile or a breadth limit to the pile, but I'm not sure.
Well, that's what she says. She said the husband says that Mabel's pile is so enormous it keeps him from getting to his own clothes. He can't get to his own stuff. He can't get to the wardrobe because the pile of clothes is so huge.
You know what the solution for the husband is?
She changes her clothes 3 times a day too. That's a little
weird.
weird.
Forgot that part from that.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Well, I don't know her that well. So the one other thing I'd like to say, you know what the solution for the guy is? Get another chair for the bedroom. I'm serious, like a his and hers kind of thing, and do his own piling.
Well, you're supposed to compromise in your marriage.
Can I tell you, when you do pile something up on like a chair or something, and you can't find something, and all of a sudden you find it under the pile, how great is that? Isn't that a fabulous feeling?
Yeah, well, it's really ridiculous.
Exactly. That's how I feel. Thank you.
If you've been looking for something for days and days and days, and you can't find it because you got so much you-know-what on top of the chair.
Did I ever tell you the story?
That's pretty pathetic.
I have told you the story. I got to tell this very carefully. I am embarrassed to say, but I have to tell the truth. I was in a fraternity for 1 year in college, and every minute of it is something
Tell
I should
me about the pilot coats.
Apologize for. So one of my roommates was a guy. Can't we remember this? Wheels Markell. From Virginia. Wheels Markell. I can't even remember what his first name was, but he is the only one that had a car. He had a Mustang convertible, so we called him Wheels.
Wheels.
And he would drink occasionally. And by the way, you know what? Well, I'll tell you the story another time. In any case, Wheels drank a lot at fraternity parties. And he drank a lot before one particular party. This is a totally true story. My right hand's raised. We couldn't find him the whole night. We're really worried. And when people came in our fraternity house, when you get your coat, this is why I thought of it. You just throw the coats in a pile. And when you leave, you pull your coat out of the pile. And we couldn't find Wheels. People were getting really worried because he was missing the whole night. He was drunk. Had he gone out driving? Whatever. When the final coat came off the pile, we found Wheels naked at the bottom of the pile. That's a true story underneath. And I'm going to end the story by saying this. This is totally true. When I met former governor, first black governor in America, Doug Wilder, at the inauguration of Deval Patrick's first time, and I was too nervous. I didn't know what to say to the guy.
Obama.
At the inauguration of Deval Patrick, yes.
Oh, my goodness.
And I didn't know what to say to him, like a moron. I said, I have a friend in Virginia. Do you know, it was Steve Markell. Can you believe I said this to him? I know one person in Virginia. You know what he says to me? He was my Secretary of Higher Education Wheels, who was naked under the pile of coats at the fraternity house, was the Secretary of Higher Education. That was a good story,
There you
Jim.
go. You can turn things around, Jim.
Faith in North Andover, thanks for your patience through that endless story I just told. Welcome.
I love that story, Jim.
Well, thank you.
I don't know what my problem is, but I consistently have about 3 days worth of clothing on my bed, which I pick up the whole pile and I put it on the chair in the bedroom so I can go to bed at night. In the morning, I have to pull that same pile, put it back on the bed so I can sit at my desk. And this goes on for days until I can't stand it, and I finally put everything away, wear a blanket. Now, that's bad, but now I'm married to a man who, as he undresses to go into the shower or into the bed, whatever
he does, yeah.
I find a sock, I find another sock, I find the underwear, I find the T-shirt, like a path going to the laundry basket on the floor. So I think this is marriage security. No one else could ever live with either one of us. I think this is how we stay together.
That is a beautiful story. That's a beautiful romance. Thank you very much for sharing. I loved each part of that, by the way. Thank you.
A texter is pointing out that we're talking about chairs with piles on them, but not to forget the exercise bike purchased during COVID. This is now an extension of my closet.
Well, you said, someone mentioned you saw an elliptical in the background of my red room, my visual thing.
Right.
You hang on the hands. You hang stuff on the top,
That's what
by the way.
people are doing.
But you got to move them because you got to theoretically use it. Now, here we go again. Our team has said they have sound of the husband and wife fighting. It's a 50-50 proposition. Sometime when we do this without knowing what they're playing, it's horrible. And sometimes it's okay. You want to take a chance and go for this?
Sure, let's go for it.
Here apparently is sound of the husband and wife in this messy pile thing fighting. Here it is.
Mabel! Oh my God! Kevin!
Oh, that sounds like it's from Home Alone. Is that from Home Alone?
What's it from? What is it from? No one's telling us.
Kevin sounds like it's from Home Alone.
Okay, we'll tell you in a couple of seconds. That was excellent, sort of. Okay, Mabel is from Only Murders in the Building. Okay, and whatever.
Kevin is from Home Alone.
From Home Alone. Thank you. It was brilliantly put together, by the way, by whoever did that. Larry in Connecticut, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, I've been listening for years.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm 74 years old.
Perfect.
And I've been married for 54 years.
No.
And they're just lucky to have each other.
Oh.
Either or a hole. But, try and please your wife, do what she wants.
Yeah.
And you're lucky to have her.
Yeah, well, we don't know that, but maybe he is.
Well,
Larry, thank you for sharing your very
That is-
sentimental,
yeah.
lovely call thing there. And hopefully they're happy, the couple there. Larry hopes they're happy. 877-301-8970 is the number.
Mike in North Carolina says, Mabel is the a-hole. Piles of clothes are unacceptable. This is a common problem. My wife and I have a solution. We brought a rack that goes over the top of the door that holds at least a half a dozen pieces. What do you think about that?
I have, exactly, in the red room, by the way, the reason it's a red room is because it's painted red is the answer.
Right.
I have one of those racks. It goes over the top of the door, and you hang like shirts or belts or that sort of stuff. I have one of those
Do you have things hanging from the handlebar to the elliptical?
I do, but I told you, but you got to take them off the elliptical when you're using the elliptical. It's sort of like that woman who moves the stuff from the bed to the chair, to the bed to the chair, Faith, who called a couple of minutes ago. You haven't admitted to anything except when your house looked like it was ransacked when it hadn't been.
I've improved.
You have improved.
I have improved. You have to put you have to throw everything in the bedrooms. That's what you do. You want to keep where anybody's going to see the house, in reasonably good shape.
Did you tell me that's what you used to do when people came over? You'd throw everything in one room?
Yeah, I've done that. When every year when I have my Christmas party, I never get cleaned up in time.
So you just throw everything in one room?
Throwing everything in the room and then closing the door.
What do you do after the
Sometimes
Christmas
I hide
party?
everything behind the bed.
You do?
One time I had a pile of coats there that was about 6 feet high.
Was Wheels underneath the pile or no?
No, but it could have been.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to do. You have to make sure, because some people poke around in your house. You know
They
what I
do?
mean? Yeah.
That's really horrible.
So you have to
people
have
go
everything
through
in one
your
room,
things?
Lock it up.
That's really unacceptable.
877-301-8970. There was a lot of people find this unacceptable. They think
Which?
that we need
Of the
to have
pile?
we need to have compromise. And Mitch points out in New Bedford that no one ever sits in the bedroom chair, so you might as
Excuse
well
me.
do
Jim
something with
Browdy
it.
pointed that out too.
Yeah, well, you're not.
Can I
you're
ask
not
you a question?
texter.
I have a question for you, which we haven't. The example I picked up before, I meant to ask you a question at the end. When your clothes are lightly soiled because you've worn them once, but it's a thing like you can wear a second time, like unlike an undershirt, which you got to just wash because it's touching your body and your bits and pits or whatever they're called. What do you do with that thing that is used once? So it probably shouldn't go back in the drawer with the pristine, clean things, but is not dirty enough to waste to do horrible things to the environment and wash it yet. Where do you put it?
I think you put it on a hanger and put it in the closet. Isn't that what you do?
Oh yeah, I forgot. No, I didn't forgot the closet thing. You could hang it in the closet.
Yeah,
okay,
you
fine.
could do that.
Okay.
877-301-8970 is the number. This person wants to know about steaming clothes, ironing and steaming clothes.
Oh, I have a steamer.
Or are they all dirty?
I haven't used the steamer. I have a steamer. I bought it from one of those late night television things, like 1999 when I bought. What's that
when
thing
you bought
called?
the pellet stove?
No, not the pellet stove. I didn't buy late night.
You don't know how to use?
I bought that thing. What's the thing?
Vegematic?
No, not the thing cuts your hair with a vacuum cleaner
Flowbee.
attached. A Flowbee, thank you. I bought a Flowbee too.
Tell people what that is.
Flowbee is this great thing. I'm sorry to get off topic, but it's great. You remember that store, Things You Saw on TV or whatever the hell it's called? Edgar should actually do a thing on this. Look at Edgar.
What would they call it? The schwoomow? What was the thing you cleaned your car with?
ShamWow. No, let me just say what the Flowbee is.
That was the best.
The Flowbee is you get this thing. They still sell them. You attach it to a canister vacuum cleaner. Now the problem is when you buy it, if you don't have a canister vacuum cleaner, you're thrilled. The thing costs $19.99. You got to spend $300 on a canister. But then you attach it, and you can adjust the length, and you attach it to your head. And it sucks up your hair. And if you say you want a half inch, you got a half inch cut. If you want a 1 inch, that's what a Flowbee is.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, Marjorie can't take your calls because I wasted all that time talking about the Flowbee. But I have to say,
are we out of time?
We are. It's the end of the show.
Oh.
But we don't have a 3-hour show anymore. We moved to 2 hours.
I know. I'm getting used to the change. I'm not really in the swing
about
yet.
To come in here. We'll talk to him in a second.
We can ask him about Flowbees. He's got a lot of hair.
He does.
Maybe he could do one of those Flowbee deals.
I don't think he looks. No, Flowbee is for somebody who I was sort of low. I was in law school.
You were low rent Flowbee?
I was not making. No, it was post law school.
Oh,
actually.
okay.
Whatever. Here's Edgar. What are we talking about here?
Edgar.
Flowbees, as far as I could tell.
You ever done a Flowbee?
I haven't done a Flowbee, but I'm pro Flowbee.
You know what it is, right?
I do know what it is. Absolutely.
He's got a lot of
As
hair.
seen on
we
TV,
should try
that's what
it
it's
out.
called.
Should we
For
do
the
a live? We'll do a
curiosity
live
desk.
Flowbee
Oh
for
my
the
God,
We'll do a
that'd be
crossover
fabulous.
here right
Flowbee
between your show and mine.
ectomy?
Yeah, and we'll do a Flowbee test.
I would totally. You have a canister vacuum cleaner?
I do not.
Why don't you just buy one and expense it? I'm
Great,
sure
that's
Jimmy
perfect. Yeah, that's not going to raise any red flags.
Yeah. I think they're good to have, though. The canister.
very good
I don't
to
have
have.
one. Do you?
But
I have the
canister.
one that you have that I lost the.
I lost
charger.
the Flowbee. Now the only other problem is I do have several ShamWows though. So, look it up.
Do they come with the drugs? Or?
Yeah, didn't he get arrested?
I mean,
the
he did.
ShamWow
That's
guy?
right.
You know, just looking at him from a mile away, you're like, somebody has had some uppers, shall we say?
Okay, what are you doing on your show?
Well, we have a conversation with Zoë Hitzig, who was at OpenAI until recently. She's also at Harvard. She was a high profile. She wrote a great op-ed in the New York Times a couple weeks ago as to why she left OpenAI and ChatGPT over concerns about their ad model and where they're going, the direction that they're going in.
Fabulous.
So we're going to have her and have a really interesting conversation about where AI is right now and what we can do.
Excellent. That's a good one. I think people are very worried in general
I think
about
people in general
no
are.
regulations.
You know what I'm worried about?
What are you worried about,
Can't find my Flowbee. I mean, I'm not saying AI is not important. That's obviously important.
Have you tried asking ChatGPT where your Flowbee is?
Bring the ShamWows in tomorrow, Jim. All right?
ShamWow.
Yeah.
Those were the days. They do that on late night television anymore?
I loved infomercials.
Oh,
I
great.
loved
So did I.
infomercials.
My favorite was the Vegematic.
What?
I love the
That was good.
Vegematic.
Remember the Fisher-matic with Dan Aykroyd?
The magic bullet. The Australian guy.
Bassomatic. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd had the Fisher-matic.
Oh, yeah.
Bassomatic into the thing, and Okay, we got to go. Sorry,
we have
we're not.
infomercials to watch.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. You can keep up with us 24/7 way over our podcast. You check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, we're not at the Boston Public Library. We're not going to be back until March 10th, unfortunately, but we're going to be joined here by NBC 10 Boston's Sue O'Connell, live music and jazz, and neo-soul singer Sophia, author Rachel Hartigan on her new book about Amelia Earhart, her disappearance and the efforts to find her, plus the Boston Globe's Christopher Muther, who just survived this ordeal in Mexico. When he
Puerto Vallarta. I mean, he was there when this all happened.
Yes, he was. It was very, very scary. He's going to tell us all about it. I want to thank our great crew, Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our additional support from Ronan Keene. Patrick Lally ran our YouTube stream. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jenny Bologna. Stay tuned to the Curiosity Desk with Edgar B. Hurwitz III, and we are going to do the Flowbee-ectomy really quick.
It's happening.
Schedule that. He's done. Curiosity Desk is right after us at 89.7 GBH. And Jared's got a tape version today. I think he's on vacation.
Whatever.
But he's got a tape version of the Culture Show starting at 2 o'clock today. I'm Marjorie Egan.
That's right. I'm Jim Bradley.
That's right.
Bye.
Bye.
From the stories of centuries past to discoveries that will define our future, How Did We Get Here's, how-tos, and more. Journey with us down the rabbit hole on the Curiosity Desk. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Brightbound. Careers aren't one size fits all, and Brightbound helps students as young as middle school identify their strengths and find careers that fit them just right. Learn more at BRITEbound.org. And the DeMoore McKim School of Business at Northeastern University, where graduate students can build vital business skills through experience. Business Bootcamp Series, April 13th through 17th. Northeastern.edu/Business Bootcamp.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Edgar B. Hurwitz III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, we meet with a former researcher at OpenAI who just quit her job at the ChatGPT parent company over concerns with its new ad model and general unease around what she calls the company's unprecedented archive of human candor.
Part of why I really felt strongly about ringing the alarm bell right now is because I want people to think very clearly about what kinds of data they're creating and how it could be potentially used against them.
Then we get into a few of the things you have recently told us you are curious about. Lots of great curiosity questions have been pouring in. We'll try to answer a few of them. And to round out the hour, we'll regale you with the story of that time Johnny Cash was nearly off by his pet ostrich. Bet you didn't see that one coming. It's all ahead this hour on the Curiosity Desk.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Members of Congress are reacting to an NPR investigation that found the Justice Department withheld some Epstein files related to allegations President Trump sexually abused a minor in the 1980s. A law passed last year mandates the release of all files, but those withheld include what appear to be more than 50 pages of FBI interviews and notes from conversations with Trump's accuser. The ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, Robert Garcia, pressed the DOJ for answers.
What we have is a survivor that we have verified, that others have verified, and those files are missing. And it's not just those. It's an additional 50% of files that are missing. It is unconscionable, it is illegal, and Pam Bondi and the president need to answer to where those files are.
The committee's Republican chair, James Comer, said the panel's looking into the allegations outlined in the NPR report. Today, members of the panel are questioning former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in a closed-door deposition in New York. She has said she never had any personal connections with Jeffrey Epstein or personal knowledge of his sex crimes. The average rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage fell just below 6% this week, according to Freddie Mac. That is the lowest rate in about 3.5 years. NPR's Stephen Basaha says Cheaper home interest rates could lead to more Americans getting into the housing market.
Mortgage rates have been steadily declining since last May, so it's not like housing got drastically more affordable this week. But Kate Wood with NerdWallet said the psychological effect of a mortgage below 6% and just how long people have been waiting to move could get more Americans house shopping.
There are people who are certainly going to reach that breaking point of, I love my mortgage rate, but my goodness, I cannot stand this house anymore.
The U.S. is in a housing affordability crisis, and cheaper mortgages can help. But the U.S. also has a housing shortage, so a flood of new buyers without more supply could drive prices up, cutting into any affordability gains. Stephen Basaha, NPR News.
Cuba says a boat registered in Florida was carrying 10 people with, quote, terrorist intent. NPR's Ada Peralta reports a gunfight ended with 4 people dead.
Cuba's Interior Ministry says the boat entered into Cuban waters, and when border troops approached, the occupants opened fire. Cuban troops returned fire, killing 4 people and injuring 6. The Cuban government says the men on board were Cubans living in Florida planning terrorist attacks on the island. Kiki Naranjo is a friend of one of the survivors and says none of the men were terrorists. They are all men who want Cuba to be free, he says, but they grew tired of promises by politicians. Naranjo and his friend run a group that he says wanted to sabotage the government from the inside. The U.S. says it will investigate and react appropriately. Ada Peralta, NPR News, Mexico City.
It's NPR.
From the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston, I'm Judy Ewell. Residents and road crews in southeastern Massachusetts still digging out from historic snow totals. Brockton's Mayor Moses Rodriguez says they're short 80 pieces of equipment to clear city streets.
And the city itself cannot go out and buy enough of those equipment, because what happens in the off seasons when you don't have snow? It's personnel. It costs a great deal of money to keep a city running. So people need to understand that. Now we've got all hands on deck.
And he says residents need to do their part by obeying the travel ban. Fall River's travel ban was lifted this morning. Police still asking everybody to refrain from unnecessary driving if possible. Meantime, Eversource says power should be restored to customers on the South Coast, Cape Cod, and the islands by tomorrow. Just over 58,000 outages remain, according to the state map. Governor Maura Healey's administration is partnering up with Google to help Massachusetts residents learn how to use artificial intelligence for free. The governor says the Grow with Google program unveiled this morning makes AI courses available to everybody at no cost. She says she wants to make Massachusetts the applied AI capital of the U.S. for innovators and companies.
If you want to be on board with using AI to more quickly cure diseases and find treatments and solve problems, whether they're in the defense industry or robotics, quantum, life sciences, biotech, you name it, fintech, AI is applicable everywhere.
Healey says she believes the more people who understand and work with AI, the safer it will be, and the more appropriate guardrails will be put in place. In sports, the Bruins host the Blue Jackets tonight. A bright and sunny afternoon, something of a warm-up. It's 41 in Boston.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive. Progressive Commercial Auto Insurance protects the vehicles that work to keep small businesses moving forward, including protection while running errands and other tasks. At progressivecommercial.com.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Advancements in AI have been dizzying in the 3 years since ChatGPT burst on the scene. And of course, hand-wringing about how the technology could change us for the worse have been with us from the beginning. But our next guest recently put a flashing red light on the danger after working for one of the world's biggest AI companies. Zoë Hitzig's recent op-ed in the New York Times was headlined, "OpenAI is making the mistakes Facebook made. I quit." We spoke with her recently over Zoom and started talking about her work trying to create ethical guardrails for ChatGPT.
So what I worked on, I'm a researcher by training, and what I was working on was research into the social and economic impacts of AI. And so what we were trying to do was to use the data that we have and to try to sort of understand where capabilities are going and look a little bit into the distance to say what might come about because of that and how does that change how we're doing things now in terms of how we build the models and how we deploy the models to people around the world.
So you've said that you don't see ads as inherently unethical. And you can see, like, running these LLMs, AI, it takes money to do it. So there has to be a revenue stream. And then you sort of look at it, you can say, well, we see ads everywhere in technology. We see it in our social feeds. But it seems like for you, you've made a distinction here, and that concerns around ads in ChatGPT are different somehow. How?
Yeah, what I'm worried about is not necessarily the ads themselves, but how ads create a very specific economic incentive for the company. Once you have an advertising engine, you are basically saying that every minute a user spends using the product translates into a dollar that can come from an advertiser. So what really worries me here is not necessarily the ads themselves, though we can talk about some potential dangers there, but really about how it creates this incentive to keep people using the product before we've understood the potential effects of keeping people hooked on the platform.
So in your estimation, it's sort of like if ads are the revenue model, there's no way around the fact that you want maximum time spent engaged in the platform.
That's my big worry. And, the company OpenAI put out a bunch of advertising principles that I think are in some ways very laudable. They said, this is what ads will look like. They say that we're not going to optimize for engagement. They had all of these kinds of principles. And what I just wanted to point out is that, in the very beginning, Facebook also had principles about how they would and wouldn't use people's data. And over time, once you strap on this massive economic engine with billions and billions of dollars at stake, it's just really hard to stick to those principles.
I want to get into the nature of why it's hard to stick to those principles in a bit. But let's stay on ads for a second. You said we could talk a little bit about, potential problematic nature of ads in general. So, kind of as we look at it now as a user, I guess the question is, what are we going to notice where there's ads? Is there a concern I won't notice or be able to distinguish? This seems to be the implication from Anthropic, who is behind Claude. There were a series of high-profile ads during the Super Bowl. And, they were saying there's no ads on Claude. And the implication from them seemed to be like, potentially at other places, you're not even going to know when they're advertising to you.
Right. I think that's certainly a danger. And, one of the points that I really try to bring up in the piece is that this is a new kind of data, and ad tech for the last 10 years has been successful because of the kinds of data that it has access to. And I argue that what a chatbot and what an AI platform has access to is of a whole new nature. Like the social media companies, the e-commerce companies, they had access to what you do in the digital world. They can see your clicks, they can see what you buy, they can see whether you scroll quickly or slowly past something. And of course, they can build a profile based on that rich archive of actions. But what I see that's really different in chatbot data is that people think that they are in private and they're having private conversations. I mean, so many stories are coming out now that describe how people use ChatGPT and other AI tools as a kind of confidant. And so the kind of data that is available now is just of a whole other kind of sort entirely.
We're talking with Zoë Hitzig, junior fellow at Harvard, former researcher at OpenAI, about her concerns over where technology is headed. I want to stay on this notion of how we're using these tools, I guess you will call them. You have a phrase that you used in your piece, which I find really striking, archive of human candor, to describe the way we're interacting with these. I mean, we're talking about that in terms of the profiles they're able to build around us in terms of advertising, but just in general, the fact that we are using this way, that these are companies that have an understanding of us, maybe as individuals, just people in general and what they're using. I mean, what are the implications of that?
I think the implications are really unknown, and that's what freaks me out so much. And part of why I really felt strongly about ringing the alarm bell right now is because I want people to think very clearly about what kinds of data they're creating and where that data is being held and how it could be potentially used against them, both in terms of, how it could be used in advertising, but also, again, going back to the engagement point. Like if a platform builds a really, really clear psychometric profile of me, they'll have a much easier time figuring out how to keep me engaged, right? So these data questions and the engagement question, like we can't separate them.
Yeah, I mean, you also bring up this sort of notion of, it seems, with these LLMs or these chatbots, whatever you want to call them, and an idea of them using something which we see in other places, which is kind of the paid experience versus the non-paid experience, right? So on our streaming service, I guess it's sort of one thing if, the television shows I'm watching, if I pay a little extra, I don't have to deal with advertisers. But if I want to use it for free, okay, it's going to interrupt my show every once in a while and I'm going to be served up an ad. Maybe not that big a deal. But in this case, as you're talking about, if we have one experience that is ad-free, and only the people who have enough to pay whatever they're going to pay monthly for their subscription get the ad-free experience versus this other free experience where I am being served advertising, seems like maybe there's some more concern in what that's going to do to us as a people if we split the world that way.
Exactly. I think that there are deep questions about access and equity that we need to be grappling with at the same time as this broader question of, how should the AI companies make money? And, I would point out that Anthropic, the company that runs Claude, they had those very funny Super Bowl ads about advertising and other platforms. And, I would just point out that I think they haven't quite solved the problem either. They don't have a massive user base like ChatGPT does. They, mostly sell subscriptions. And, I think we really need to grapple with the question of access at the same time as we grapple with the question of advertising and manipulation. And I would just say that I think the industry seems to have presented us with a kind of false choice. And
what's that false choice?
The false choice is basically saying to us, look, either you can have advertising and serve, 900 million people every week around the world, and which, may come along with, engagement optimization and manipulation, or you can sell subscriptions to rich people. And I just think that there are really, it's not rocket science. We can be more creative. We can find a different way out that doesn't lead to manipulation through ads or exclusion through a subscription-based model.
Do you have ideas of, even just baseline ideas of what some of those more creative solutions could be?
Yeah, sure. So one idea that I find compelling is to think about, apologies if it sounds a bit nerdy, I like thinking about sort of explicit cross-subsidies. I think in many sorts of utility services, we have this logic where people who use a lot of the service end up sort of paying a little bit of a premium in order to subsidize the use for other people. And I think that makes a lot of sense in the case of AI, where the people who are using a ton of AI are probably using it in highly, highly productive use cases where they might be, substituting away from human labor. And so, yes, they're very productive, but they're also having an impact on society. They can pay a little bit of an extra kind of tax that gets fed into a pool of money that supports broad-based and free access. And, the FCC does this a little bit with broadband. So I think we have some precedents to look at there.
We're talking with Zoë Hitzig, junior fellow at Harvard, former researcher at OpenAI, about her concerns over where technology is headed. What, if anything, are the barriers to somebody out there trying something like that, as you sort of suggest? Is it somehow harder? Is it one of these things that you need somebody of some sort to force a private company to try something like this? And then if so, we're going to get into the whole thing, well, who's the body that can force them to do that? Maybe the government. What are our questions about whether or not the government ought to be controlling something like this or weighing in on you get into an entire free market thing. So what are the barriers to an idea like the one you have?
Yeah, what a great question. I think there are a few different avenues to get something like this adopted. I think one, as you say, is to force a different approach. And, that could come through the government. I'm a little worried that things happen slowly in the government. And, our government is of a particular kind right now that may not be particularly favorable to tech regulation. A second approach that I think is worth thinking about is how do we sort of as consumers get these companies to engage in a race to the top? And when I say race to the top, I mean, how do we get, OpenAI and Anthropic and Google and Meta to start competing not just on the capabilities of their models, but start competing with each other on how much they're earning user trust? And one thing that makes me a little bit hopeful about what, potentially getting enough pressure on these companies to get them to engage in a race to the top is that both OpenAI and Anthropic are both public benefit companies. And, again,
and what do you mean by that, public benefit companies?
Yeah, sorry to be a little wonky about this.
No, this is the place to be wonky. We respect your wonkiness here, so wonk away.
Great. So a public benefit company is a specific kind of incorporation that companies can do, which is different from the standard incorporation for a company. So the standard way says, look, the only fiduciary duty of a corporation is to its shareholders. And so the only thing that it really has to do with respect to its shareholders is make sure it's doing everything it can to maximize profit. A public benefit company can, in addition, write out a kind of charter and say that in addition to maximizing profit for our shareholders, we have this other explicit goal of benefiting the public that we're going to write down in some fashion that we have that we're going to say that we have a duty to carry out. And so famous public benefit companies include like Patagonia, like King Arthur Flour, a lot of Warby Parker is one big one. So it's an approach that many companies have taken. But what is very different right now is it is kind of unprecedented to have companies of this scale, like OpenAI and Anthropic together are currently valued at over $1 trillion if you add them up. And that kind of scale for a public benefit vehicle is kind of unprecedented. So I'm hopeful that we can try to use that vehicle to try to get these companies to stick by their word.
You sort of talk about a little bit, you're sort of, kind of hinting on, our role, the user's role in all of this, which, it's a thing that is kind of hard to get your head around. I mean, one of the things you raise as a concern in the piece that you wrote for the New York Times is this idea that we are en masse, like sort of zombie walking into this. Everybody's just kind of adopting this thing, trying it out, using it, not really knowing what we're getting into. On the other hand, which I kind of hear, and then on the other hand, I ask myself, well, how else do we find out how to use a thing except for when a new thing comes along? I mean, through human histories, and this is what we do. Everybody embraces it, takes a shot trying it. We have a bunch of creative solutions. People just sort of find their way to the thing. It's one of the reasons humans have been able to adapt forever. And then also, as you say, we can kind of pressure these companies to sort of do it the right way. But if we don't know what the right way, even for us to use this thing is, how do we pressure them to do it the right way? Like, what's our responsibility? What should we be doing?
Yeah, great question. And I agree, it's not so easy to answer. And I agree that the main point I want to get across is that we just really should make sure we don't sleepwalk into a situation that we someday regret. And what I can say is that even though I think we're going to make tons of mistakes with AI because it's so new and so complicated and touching all facets of our lives in so many different ways, there is one way in which AI is not complicated, and that's the ways in which it has similar shape to social media. And that's why I'm coming back to this comparison, because social media is something that we've learned some lessons from, right? Like, we adopted social media en masse, we all got addicted, we all started to see the consequences, teenagers got eating disorders, people stormed the Capitol based on fake news. Like, there were some serious issues that we learned about. And all I want to do with AI, I mean, this is not all I want to do, but one very minimal thing we can do is learn the lessons of social media and learn the lesson that says, hey, optimizing for keeping people on the platform before you understand what it does to people socially and psychologically is probably a bad idea. We're going to make tons of other mistakes, but the mistake we made with social media is one that we understand and we should not make again.
We're talking with Zoë Hitzig, junior fellow at Harvard, former researcher at OpenAI, about concerns about where technology is headed, about OpenAI and her reasons for stepping away from OpenAI. The fact that you stepped away from OpenAI means at one point you stepped in with OpenAI. What was the thing that attracted you in the beginning about this particular project? And presumably, and it sounds like you do still have some hopes for AI and what it can be, what it can do, but something about it must excite you.
Absolutely. I think that AI could be transformative. And as I said, I care about access to AI because I think it can have enormous potential impacts on people's lives. And, as much as we talk about the mental health challenges that AI might be creating, I think it's also solving tons of mental health challenges. So I want to be pretty humble about, both what we do and don't know on the benefits and the downsides. And when I started at OpenAI, I was not just really hopeful about the ways that this technology could transform society, but I was also really hopeful about the organization I was stepping into. And I felt that the company was filled with people who were taking the social problems as seriously as they were taking the technological problems, and the enormous ambition around building superintelligence, around curing cancer and, transforming the economy. All of that technological ambition was also coupled with a kind of social ambition to say, look, these are not separate issues. We can't develop a technology this powerful without also thinking about the consequences. So I felt that I had a chance to step in right in a really important window of time and help steer in the best possible direction.
Do you feel like in your time there that changed?
Yeah, well, I left.
I want to be careful. In our business, we have kind of an adage about, like one is an accident, 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a trend. But we have a 2 thing here, which is you are a poet, and another notable person recently in the AI space, Ronak Sharma, who was at Anthropic, quit his job and suggested that he would study poetry. So I wonder, is there some connection between the poet's mind and what is happening right now in AI that is leading to these defections?
For better or for worse, I think people who are into poetry are, obsessively focused on the human experience and are, might be able to kind of see trends in different ways than others. And I would also say, a little bit in a more in a less lofty direction, that poets are more willing to walk away from, kind of step off what feels like a rocket ship.
Yeah. So, do you have advice for how the everyday person might use a Claude or a ChatGPT in a very direct way? Or do you have some suggestions about maybe how you use them, if you use them at all?
Yeah, I think that the best way to use AI right now is to think about the ways in which it is making you more human and the ways in which it's giving you kinds of agency that you didn't have before. And so maybe that's in, teaching you new languages, teaching you new skills around the house. But really just trying to think, like, is this use of AI making me more human, and is it giving me more freedom than I had before? And I think that if the answer to both of those questions is yes, then I think you're probably using AI in a great way.
And the alternative, if I ask myself that question and it's not a yes, but I think to myself, but I'm having a good time doing it anyway.
Yeah, I think to each their own, I suppose. But I have a pretty bad Twitter or X addiction, and I wonder about if I had caught myself earlier, if I would have ended up with that. And so I think thinking ahead, thinking about the lessons that you might have learned from other kinds of platforms might be useful to bring into your experience now.
I mean, thinking ahead about the consequences later of what you're doing now. I mean, one of the great challenges of the human experience through all time, right?
Exactly.
That was Zoë Hitzig, a former researcher at OpenAI and a junior fellow at Harvard's Society of Fellows. Check out her New York Times op-ed, "OpenAI is making the mistakes Facebook made. I quit." Stay with us. Just ahead, we'll tackle a few of your most burningest curiosity questions. This is the Curiosity Desk on GBH. Stay with us.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, renowned photographer Sally Mann on her new book. It's a laugh-out-loud funny, irreverent, and refreshingly practical guide on the process of being an artist. Plus, Richard Smith. For more than 25 years, he spent his days in the 19th century portraying Henry David Thoreau. Now he's decided to hang up his waistcoat and straw hat. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Babson College, where students can learn to lead with impact and become a driving force for change. Babson's graduate virtual open house is on March 18th. Registration at babson.edu/gradopenhouse.
And McLean Middleton. For over 100 years, McLean Middleton has been dedicated to serving its clients and its community, offering guidance through the complexities of today's legal system. With locations in Woburn and Boston, McLean.com.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Way back at the start, the Curiosity Desk was a regular radio feature here on GBH. And the initial idea was simple. Let's ask our listeners to tell us what they are curious about, and then we'll go see if we can find answers. Well, with this new daily iteration, we're keeping that aspect of the Curiosity Desk strong, which means we want to hear from you. The best way to submit a question is to fill out our handy-dandy form on the Curiosity Desk page on gbh.org or call our phone line, 877-301-8970, and leave us a voicemail. As for right now, we've selected a few recent questions that have caught our eye, and our motley crew of curiosity seekers, aka the incredible team behind this show, have been hard at work tracking down some answers. Our senior producer, Aidan Connolly, is with me now to share a little bit about what we've learned. Hey, Aidan.
Good afternoon, Edgar. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, we love doing these listener questions, and I want to jump right into them with our first question here.
Hi, Edgar. This is Tammy. I have a question for the Curiosity Desk. I really would like to see a blue whale, and I'm wondering where would I go and when to have the best opportunity to see one?
Well, first of all, you really cannot blame Tammy. The blue whales are incredible. Let's go over some basics. Largest animal to ever walk the earth. Of course, that's figuratively speaking.
To swim the earth.
To swim the earth.
To inhabit the earth.
I mean, back in the day, they evolved. They came off of land, but nowadays they don't walk. They swim. They also can grow to 100 feet and weigh as much as 200 tons. Edgar, their tongue, 2 tons.
Two-ton tongue?
Two-ton tongue. Say that 10 times fast.
Two-ton tongue.
They also happen to be the loudest animals on Earth. Can be even louder than a jet engine. The calls reach 188 decibels. We happen to have some sound of a blue whale call. It's not going to come across 188 decibels, so really blast your radio speaker if you want the full effect. But
let's go.
Let's play it. And it's that kind of low booming.
Yeah.
So really,
that is oddly soothing.
Really built for radio. You want that deep, gravelly voice. And the blue whale, I mean, if they could walk to a radio studio. But anyhow.
But you're not really going to see a blue whale around here, right? You can go on a lovely whale watch here, but not for blue whales.
Yeah, you might see some humpbacks, but not blue whales. That's correct.
So where are they?
Now, they're in both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, but neither sort of come close to where we are. If you're on the Pacific coast, you might want to try Monterey Bay in California from July through August. Or if you're looking to go right now, you can go to the Sea of Cortez in Baja California from February to March and catch a couple. Or in San Diego from around mid-June to September.
How about on the Atlantic side of things?
Yeah, best place might be the Azores. It's right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, between North America and Europe, sometime between April and May.
Okay, April and May coming right up. So Tammy, if you're looking for closeness and nowness, right, it seems like the Azores may be your best target coming up in just a couple months.
That's right. And that also happens to be the place where Lisa Steiner works. She's a marine biologist based in the Azores. She also does whale watching tours for blue whales. And she had some advice for what to expect if you go off trying to catch a blue whale in person. Here's what she said.
Blue whales haven't really been too curious to come and have a look at the boat most of the time. Occasionally we've had a younger one go underneath the boat, and then you can see the whale through the water on both sides of the boat because of that coloration difference, and that's pretty amazing to see. But yeah, you just have to remember that they are wild animals, and they can surpass your expectations, or they can just be there and blowing at the surface and not doing all the tricks that you might see, the wildlife documentaries.
Anywhere closer to home that she could possibly see them?
Yeah, that's a great question, Edgar. From June to October off the coast of Quebec, you can see them.
But we can come closer to home for this next question. This is from Rod in Yarmouthport.
Hello, this is Rod Skinner calling from Yarmouthport, Massachusetts. I was wondering, what is the science behind the Whispering Arch in Seaver Hall at Harvard? Thank you.
Oh, the Whispering Arch.
Had you heard of the Whispering Arch before?
I had heard of though I will be honest, I have never tried the Whispering Arch. Not the one at Seaver Hall. There are Whispering Arches, in college campuses elsewhere in the world that I've certainly tried, or just sort of generally in places, but not this one.
Well, to answer Rod's question, the Whispering Arch in Seaver Hall works. It's all because of how sound waves reflect off of curved surfaces, right? So sound travels through the air as waves. We know this. When somebody whispers, the sound spreads out in all directions. It loses energy. It's hard to hear at a distance.
Just diffuse.
Exactly.
Sound goes into the air.
Yeah, but the arch, specifically at Seaver Hall and at other sort of whispering arches, it has a curved concave shape. So when a person whispers really close to the wall, the sound waves hit that curved surface and then they reflect. They bang around all around the curve instead of spreading outward into the open space. We actually spoke with Jonas Sachs. He's a Harvard alum, currently director of architectural acoustics at Ascentech. And here's what he had to say to explain it.
It's almost like you are speaking into a tube. It's not a complete tube, but it's a partial tube, and it functions in somewhat the same way. So if you've ever spoken through a long piece of pipe, let's say, or some other kind of tube, and played that game, and someone stands at the other end and puts their ear up to it and you listen, you'll find the same thing, that the sound sounds very close to you because it does not have a chance to die off between it's trapped along the tube. It travels very efficiently within that tube. It doesn't have a chance to spread out and dilute the way it does outdoors. And this curved channel that's within the archway at Seaver Hall functions similarly.
Now, Edgar, this effect is known as the Whispering Gallery phenomenon.
Wait, it is? There's a name for it? The Whispering Gallery phenomenon.
Yeah, that's right. And as you were alluding to earlier, it's not just Seaver Hall. It's tons of places have this where they have these arches. St. Paul's Cathedral, Grand Central Station. Also, if you're looking for another place in Boston, downtown. At the Maparium Globe in the Christian Science Center, you can experience this phenomenon. And we have one more local shout out, Edgar.
We love that.
The entire field of architectural acoustics actually started here in Boston and Cambridge. This gentleman, Wallace Sabine, was an American physicist who was working at Harvard. The university asked him to help improve the really poor acoustics in the lecture hall and the newly opened Fogg Art Museum, now the Harvard Art Museum.
Yeah.
He was on the faculty, and he was charged with solving this problem and created this whole field. So all those people that are designing performance spaces, studios, all the like, they have Harvard to thank.
And we have them to thank, too, because we rely on folks who know all about that stuff.
Thank you, Wallace Sabine.
We love that.
The more you know.
We've got one last question, and this one is related to the weather, which has been on everybody's mind this week. This comes from Catherine and Jill in Watertown. So here's what Catherine and Jill in Watertown asked. They say, we share a 2-family house and have similar smartphones. And they have noticed that when they check the Weather Channel on their phones, often the daily temperatures listed are different from one phone to the other. So they essentially live in the same house, and at the same time, they check the weather app, the Weather Channel, on their phones.
Yeah.
And they get different temperatures listed, and they want to know what the heck is going on. Like, how is this possible?
Sure. Yeah, and there are a few different things that could be going on. We talked with this gentleman, Joe Cabral. He's a senior meteorologist at the weather company that owns the Weather Channel app and weather.com. He had 3 possible things that could be happening.
Oh, I love this.
So the first one is, and it's kind of, the straightforward, maybe they checked at different times. Maybe there was a 10-minute difference between when the sisters were checking, and for that reason, the update came in
happened
later.
in that period of time. All right, so that's possibility number 1. What's possibility number 2?
Yes, they could be using the Weather Channel service, but in different ways. So if one sister is using a widget app that's pulling the information, that could be resetting its data at different frequencies than if somebody else was using the proper weather.
Oh, like so they
Channel
go,
app.
yeah. So one's on the so one could be on a widget, one could be on the Weather Channel app. I would posit a third one. Maybe somebody's going to weatherchannel.com or whatever on their browser. But and so the idea is these different, they may be refreshing or updating at different rates of speed,
Slightly different rates. That's exactly right.
So that's possibility number 2. What's possibility number 3?
And this possibility number 3, it's actually best explained by Joe Cabral, the senior meteorologist for the weather company. We have a clip to play. Let's play that now.
In weather apps, you can often set either having the app follow your precise location, so your GPS coordinate as kind of picked up by the telephone towers, versus just going to your app and asking for the city that you want the forecast for. For example, Boston, Massachusetts. If you have your precise location set, that can narrow down your location to kind of a granularity level of like your living room, right? And that might be in a part of Boston that is not in the center of the city. But if you just search for Boston as your location, you might get a forecast from the center of the city, which could be 4 or 5 miles away from your house, but still in Boston. So that difference in location can give you that 1 or 2 degree difference that you might observe on your phone.
And Edgar, when I was sort of doing a little, cursory research this morning, I was curious where the city of Boston, where our primary location for checking the weather is. And I just did a Google search, as you do.
Yeah.
And you'll never believe what came up. Can you guess?
Well, the grin on your face is giving me an idea what I think you might have pulled up.
There was a Curiosity Desk feature from 2017 or 2018 that answered this exact question. The answer is
Logan Airport.
Logan Airport.
That is where our official temperature comes from. Well, Catherine and Jill, get back in touch with us and let us know if one of those 3 things is the reason why you're getting different information on your phones when you're checking the weather. All right, thanks to Aidan Connolly, the senior producer of the show. And also, we wouldn't have these answers without the astute journalism of producer Olivia Corcio.
No, we would not.
After a quick break, we'll talk with the former editor-in-chief over at Mental Floss, Erin McCarthy, with a list of truly insane stories. This is the Curiosity Desk on GBH. Don't go anywhere.
Inside a private library on Beacon Hill, there's a collection of leather-bound books inscribed with an ornate K on the title pages. They cover all sorts of topics.
The works of Francis Bacon, hydraulic architecture, a book on rhetoric.
They belonged to Henry Knox and offer us a window into the mind of the nation's first Secretary of War and how the Founding Fathers understood the position. I'm Chris Burrell. You can find the rest of that story online at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Vivo Performing Arts Jazz Festival returns to Aero Street Arts March 5th through 8th with performances by Miguel Zenon Quartet, Isaiah Collier, Chris Davis Trio, and Sullivan Fortner Trio. VivoPerformingArts.org. and the Simmons Leadership Conference, a one-day experience featuring Hoda Kotb, Misty Copeland, and Juliet Funt. Tuesday, March 17th in person in Boston and online. Learn more at inclusiveleadership.com.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. You are listening to The Curiosity Desk. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. It is now time for us to check in with our prospector of all things interesting, Erin McCarthy. Erin's a writer and editor based in New York. She's also the former editor-in-chief of mentalfloss.com, where she hosted The List Show on YouTube. Here for The Curiosity Desk, Erin scours the internet to uncover strange and insightful stories, facts, and trivia, all around a given theme to share with us. Erin, it's lovely to see you as always.
Hi, thanks for having me.
If that little music that I heard just moments ago is any indication, I think I have a sense of what your theme is today, but let us lay it on us. What's the theme?
Today we are talking about people born on February 26th because there were so many amazing people born on this day in history.
Really? So how did you uncover the fact that so many interesting people were born on February 26th?
You know, I spend a lot of time going down Wikipedia rabbit holes, and this was no exception. You know, sometimes I'm just looking for things. You're
prospecting, as we say.
Yeah, I'm prospecting. I'm all over the internet. So yeah, this just happened to be me looking on Wikipedia and thinking, oh my gosh, there's so many cool people born today. We got to talk about it.
Okay, well, let's talk about it. Who were some of the cool people born on February 26th?
Okay, so some people I'm not going to talk about are Ida Cox, who's the uncrowned queen of blues, Shakespeare contemporary Christopher Marlowe, Erykah Badu, Levi Strauss, Michael Bolton.
Great hair.
Game show host Tom Kennedy. So when I was picking who I wanted to talk about, I was looking for some really weird and fascinating stories.
That sounds like right in our wheelhouse, weird and fascinating.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to start. We're going to start with Jackie Gleason, who was born on February 26, 1916. Built a house that looks like a UFO.
Really? He built a house that like a sort of like a flying saucer?
Yes, exactly. So everybody who's listening probably knows him best as one of the stars of The Honeymooners. Mm-hmm. But he was also incredibly interested in the paranormal and in UFOs. And in fact, he was often a guest on a paranormal-themed radio program. And he had this huge collection of books about spooky stuff.
What?
Yes. So it only makes sense that when he decided he was going to build a house, he'd make it look like a UFO.
Sure.
In 1959, he commissioned one of Frank Lloyd Wright's proteges to design and build a flying saucer-like house in Westchester County in New York. The property has 3 buildings. The biggest one is a 3-bed, 2.5-bath central mothership, which looks like a UFO. Mm-hmm. There's also a more traditional stone colonial on the property, and then a little saucer-shaped bunkhouse, which is so cute.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And you can find pictures of this online, so I would suggest everybody look it up for themselves. But Frank Sinatra, Marilyn Monroe, and Richard Nixon all visited this house.
Presumably not at the same time. Like it was not like like a dinner party.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe, possibly, but probably not at the same time. But speaking of Nixon, there's actually an urban legend floating around that he took Gleason with him when he went to go see alien remains at Florida's Homestead Air Force Base in 1973.
Wait a minute. So which part is the urban legend? That he went there at all to see alien remains, or that he brought Jackie Gleason with him?
Both. I mean, it's just like one, but yeah, like the story is out there floating around. So Gleason owned the house for a few years and then he sold it to CBS. And after that, it changed hands a couple of times, but thankfully all the weird UFO details have been preserved. And Gleason's collection of paranormal volumes, which is like 1,700 books, journals, and more, are at the University of Miami.
Oh, really?
So
they have his library of like paranormal books.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to go check it out.
Who knew? Jackie Gleason.
Report back. Yeah.
Amazing.
It's wild.
We're talking with writer and editor Erin McCarthy about some of the insane stories of people who were born, I guess, coincidentally on February 26th, but maybe not coincidentally. Maybe there's something magic about it. All right, so we have Jackie Gleason. Who else?
All right, next up is the man in black himself, Johnny Cash.
Ooh, okay.
He was born in this day in 1932. he once almost got disemboweled by an ostrich.
I see. Okay, so I'm going to assume there's a story here.
There is a story here. Okay, so it's 1981. Cash's career is kind of on a downswing, so he's spending a lot of time at his home in Tennessee, which is called the House of Cash. He had an exotic, yeah, it's perfect. He had an exotic animal park there. There were buffalo, antelope, deer, wild boar, and an ostrich named Waldo.
They named the ostrich Waldo?
Yeah, his name was Waldo. So just to kind of give context for ostriches and how big they are, they can be up to 9 feet tall.
I see. That's quite large.
It's quite large. It's almost 2 of me. And then weigh upwards of 320 pounds. So these are big birds. And not as friendly as Big Bird. So this ostrich was usually pretty pleasant with Cash. But then his ostrich lady friend died and his attitude became a lot more cranky.
Well, he lost his friend.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. So in his autobiography, Cash writes about this incident. So he was out for a walk one day when Waldo, quote, jumped out onto the trail in front of me and crouched there with his wings spread out, hissing nastily. And Cash just stood there till Waldo calmed down and backed off. And then Cash walked on. But he knew that the bird was going to be waiting for him on his walk back. So he grabbed a really big stick. And when he came back, sure enough, Waldo was there. When he moved towards Cash, Cash took a swing at the bird with his stick. And so Cash writes, I missed. He wasn't there. He was in the air, and a split second later, he was on his way down again with that big toe of his, larger than my size 13 shoe, extended toward my stomach.
Uh-oh. Oh, man. Uh-oh.
Yeah, Waldo got Cash real good. He broke the musician's lower 2 ribs and ripped open his stomach down to his belt, which is what saved his life. Yeah. If his buckle hadn't been really strong, Waldo would have spilled his guts, literally.
So it wasn't just, it was not just fashion, it was safety, that big belt buckle.
It was safety. Yeah. Make sure your belt buckles are high quality if you're going to be hanging out with ostriches. That's all I'm saying. Cash broke more ribs when he fell, but he basically just kept swinging that stick until he hit the bird in the leg and Waldo ran. I don't know what Cash did afterwards, but if it were me, I'd probably be having ostrich for dinner.
Yeah. We actually, our production team drug up a little clip of Johnny telling this story once. So we have a little moment of Johnny Cash here talking about what we just heard you tell us about.
I had about an 8-foot pole with me in case he was still there, and he was, and he started at me, and I swung the pole, which is exactly what he wanted me to do. He jumped straight up. He jumped straight up and came back down and hit me right here and broke 3 ribs. That was it? Yeah. So then, for weeks we had broiled fried ostrich.
There it is. You and Johnny Cash thinking exactly alike. You are in excellent company, Erin.
I mean, sometimes there's only one solution for an aggressive bird like that, and that's dinner.
Okay, so we've got Jackie Gleason, we've got Johnny Cash, and yet there's more here on this February 26th.
Yes. Okay, Victor Hugo, born in 1802.
Oh.
Sometimes wrote in the nude.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I feel like more writers do this than you might think. But for Hugo, it was to deal with his writer's block and also procrastination, which apparently was a pretty big problem with him. But he would have his servants take his clothing and not return it until he'd done his writing for the day. And this was the case.
Oh, this was like his
novel.
Self-imposed discipline was like, I'm going to have them take my clothes away?
Yep.
It's kind of insane.
So when he was writing or trying to write The Hunchback of Notre Dame, he missed his 1829 due date. And then another year went by, no book, and his publisher basically issued an ultimatum. Get it to me by December 1st, 1830, or you're losing 1,000 francs for every week it's overdue. Hugo missed that deadline, too. His excuse was, the July Revolution had happened, and that led to the overthrow of King Charles X, and he said he'd lost all of his notes. So the publisher gave him a 2-month extension, and that's when he finally got to work. His wife would write later that he bought a gray shawl that he covered his whole body with. And then he, quote, locked his formal clothes away so that he would not be tempted to go out, and entered his novel as if it were a prison. And he eventually finished 4.5 months later. So
incredible.
If you're a procrastinator, maybe something to try.
I hear in my head, I can hear fans of George R.R. Martin and the Game of Thrones saga saying maybe somebody should try taking his clothes away and we'll finally get that next book.
Yes, I mean, it's worth a shot.
Okay, who else? Who else do we got on April? Who else do we have on February 26th?
Okay, Fats Domino, born in 1928.
Love that man. Didn't know it was his birthday. Happy birthday, Fats.
He had to climb out a window to avoid a riot at one of his concerts.
I believe that because that man could play the piano and sing.
He could play the piano and sing. Fats Domino was one of the early pioneers of rock and roll. He influenced everyone from Elvis, who called Fats the real king of rock and roll, to Led Zeppelin, to the Beatles. So on November 2nd, 1956, he was playing a concert in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It was a sold-out show. It was also an integrated show, and there was lots of dancing, and the alcohol, it was a-flowing. Someone started a fight, and it quickly got out of hand. So much so that the police were called, and they actually fired tear gas into the ventilation ducts, which seems like a poor decision.
Yeah, that's a choice.
Like not great. And in fact, it led to a panic and a stampede as people tried to get out of there. So to escape, Fats and a couple of his band members jumped out a window, and they were actually slightly injured in the process. That led to the tear gassing, some people were stabbed. So it's like a very serious
yikes
thing. The media labeled it a race riot, and Fats didn't agree with that label. He said it was the result of the beat and the booze. But it wasn't the only riot at one of his shows. There were apparently 4 major riots at his shows over the years.
Wow.
So that's a lot of rioting. So anyway, anything to get out of there.
Indeed. Okay, so Fats Domino, and we're still not done. There are still
not done.
More people born on February 26th.
Yes, I have one last person for you, and this story is a doozy.
All right, bring it to us. Here we go.
Okay. William Frederick Cody, a.k.a. Buffalo Bill, was born on this day in 1846. He was the subject of a feud between Colorado and Wyoming after his death. So just to clarify, we're not talking about the guy from Silence of the Lambs. Okay?
Right.
But the Wild West entertainer.
The original Buffalo
Not that
Bill.
guy.
And when you say a feud, we're talking about the 2 states, the states of Colorado and Wyoming.
Yes.
All right, take us there.
They were fighting over him. So Bill died of kidney failure in Denver in January 1917.
Okay.
He told his wife he wanted to be buried on Lookout Mountain in Colorado.
Okay.
His body was laid in state at the Colorado Capitol building, and 25,000 mourners visited it. And then it was taken to a mortuary in Denver to await for spring so it could be buried. In the meantime, I mean, it was winter, you know, hard to get up to the top of the mountain. Frozen ground. He could wait. So in the meantime, Wyoming, which is where Buffalo Bill had helped establish his namesake town, Cody, said that he should be buried there, which is what had been in an earlier version of his will. But Colorado said, no, his latest will left it up to his widow, and she chose to bury him here. Sorry, not sorry. So there was a rumor that friends of Cody's from Wyoming came to Colorado, stole his corpse from the mortuary, and replaced it with the body of a local ranch hand who had recently died.
Fake corpse, the classic fake corpse.
Yeah, they apparently cut the guy's beard so that it looked like Buffalo Bill's, and then left his corpse there. So to quell those rumors, when Cody was eventually buried on Lookout Mountain in June 1917, his casket was open and 20,000 people walked by it so they could see that it was actually him.
Oh, amazing.
And then to keep anyone from stealing the corpse out of the ground, the casket was sealed in a case and then enclosed in concrete and iron. But that's not the end of it. So nearly 3 decades later, in 1948, the Cody, Wyoming chapter of the American Legion offered a $10,000 reward to anyone who could get Cody's body to Wyoming. And then the Colorado National Guard had to go station troops near the grave to make sure nobody messed with it. So the official story is that Cody is still in his Colorado grave, but Cody, Wyoming claims that it's the ranch hand that's buried there. And Buffalo Bill's true final resting place is on Cedar Mountain in Wyoming. And it's so secret that only a few people know its true location.
I mean, that is an incredible story. For those keeping record at home, Jackie Gleason would have been 110, Johnny Cash would have been 94, Victor Hugo would have been 224, Fats Domino would have been 98, Buffalo Bill would have been 180 years old on this, their birthday, all of them, plus more, February 26th. Incredible stuff. All right. We've been speaking with Erin McCarthy. She's a writer and editor based in New York. She's also the former editor-in-chief of mentalfloss.com, where she hosted The List Show on YouTube. Erin, thank you again for bringing this to us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for listening to today's Curiosity Desk. Stick around for The Culture Show. Jared speaking with photographer Sally Mann, chef Jeremy Sewall, and Richard Smith, who spent 25 years portraying Henry David Thoreau. He'll explain his choice to hang up his waistcoat and straw hat. The Curiosity Desk is produced by Aidan Connolly, Rachel Armani, Olivia Corcio, Hannah Loss, and Nicole Garcia. Patty Daniels is our steady hand. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Special thanks today to David Goodman and Andrew Massawa for their audio engineering prowess. We will be right back here with you in 23 short hours on GBH 89.7 and streaming on YouTube. Until then, I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Stay curious out there.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Bach Center's Folk Americana Roots Hall of Fame, presenting its annual induction celebration March 24th at the Bach Center Wang Theater, honoring influential artists with tributes, live performances, and an onstage dinner. FolkAmericanaRootsHallOfFame.org. Fresh from another double win at the 2025 Grammys, don't miss jazz vocalist Samara Joy as she makes her much-anticipated debut at the legendary Royal Albert Hall on a new Great Performances, tomorrow at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, renowned photographer Sally Mann. In her new book, she invites readers behind the lens, writing on what it really takes to make art. She shares the struggles, joys, and everyday rituals that fuel her work. It's a candid, funny, and wild ride that feels as intimate as her photographs. From there, Chef Jeremy Sewall of Row 34 joins us with a taste of his new cookbook, Everyday Chef, Simple Dishes for Family and Friends, showing how restaurant know-how can become home cooking. And for more than a quarter century, Richard Smith embodied Henry David Thoreau, donning the waistcoat and straw hat, walking the paths of Concord, and giving voice to one of New England's most enduring thinkers. Now, after 26 years of living deliberately in another man's shoes, Smith is stepping away from the role, closing a chapter that made Thoreau's world vividly real for thousands who visited Walden Pond. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. Photographer Sally Mann has spent her career examining that which is closest to her: family, place, the strangely alluring. In the early 1990s, she was both celebrated and controversial for her series Immediate Family, which featured photographs of her children being children. A native of Lexington, Virginia, Mann has explored its lush landscapes and the historical wounds that slavery has left on her surroundings. In a photographic study of her husband, Larry Mann, she made a series of nudes chronicling the progression of his muscular dystrophy. Visually, her work is lyrical, mysterious, and haunting. Thematically, her photographs root around family, history, and mortality. In 2015, she published her memoir, Hold Still, an inquiry into family history, the American South, and the nature of creativity. Now comes her book, Artwork, on the creative life. It is laugh-out-loud funny, it's irreverent, and it's refreshingly honest and practical as she guides the reader through her experience and process of being an artist. Sally Mann, welcome to The Culture Show. It is such a privilege to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. That was a great introduction.
Oh, well, thank you. It was a great book.
You didn't use the word, well, you only used the word controversial once, I guess.
I know. Well, we'll get to that, but...
no, let's not.
Well, what was the impetus for this book? And I'd love to be able to share essentially how you started, but I can't because of one word. You're basically imploring, this is a book about how to get stuff done. Stuff is not the word you use.
Oh, yeah. So what are the rules here about profanity?
We'll bleep them out.
Okay, good. Because I'm just incapable of talking about or writing about my life without throwing in a few bad words.
But this was practical, right?
What, the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really practical. It's like,